camera. Let's go. This is the regularly scheduled Town of Nantucket Zoning Board of Appeals meeting, May 9th. No, May. What is today? 11th. 2016. I need a. Yeah. Can I get an approval of the agenda as written?
So moved.
All right. The motion's been made. Anybody want to second that one? The agenda?
Oh, I'll second that.
All right. Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? No. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. How about the minutes of April 14th, 2015? Would I like to make a motion to approve those as written?
I'll make the motion.
All right. Karen Morgan makes the motion. Will somebody second that?
I'll second it.
Lisa seconds it. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay. I actually don't have a agenda. I have a staff report.
You want me to get an agenda for you?
If you don't mind. So I guess we got to wait a few minutes for the TV.
Yes.
It's on the staff.
It is? It's confusing. Isn't it? I guess I'm okay. Okay, thank you very much.
Yep, thanks.
Okay. Well, let me just ask: are you in need of the PowerPoint and the TV screen at this point? Yes. Okay. Why don't we? Should we skip?
I think so.
Let's skip for now, if Mr. Brescher's here. So, is Mr. Brescher here? No.
Probably
Okay.
nobody came thinking that the old business was going to take a while, right?
Right.
No, Arthur's here.
Arthur, what are you here for?
12:16.
That's Kevin.
And Ms. Hossett? 12:16. It says
Arthur,
read.
do you want to go forward? Sure. All right. So we're going to skip to 12:16. Amos B. Hostetter Jr., Stephen W. Kidder, Michael J. Puzo, trustees, A&B Realty Trust.
Okay, I'm just going to open up the...
I just got to get to the right screen also.
Is that in packet 3?
Probably
Packet
number
3.
It was after somebody.
Page 68.
Okay. Appleton here. I could have gone to Appleton too. He may be here, but I'm sorry. Okay.
It's pages 68 to 88.
Okay, you ready?
Yep.
Okay, for the record, Attorney Arthur Reed representing Amos Hostetter and other trustees of the Hostetter property on Baxter Road. All that we are doing here is moving the existing house and existing garage, which are both partially within the front yard setback on the east side of Baxter Road, the bluff side. We're moving them laterally to the north, maintaining the exact same front yard setback, non-conforming front yard setback that we have at the present time. There will be a new foundation placed under the structure. There will be no, under the house that is, there will be no increase in height of the structure. The matter is pending before the HDC, which at the first meeting didn't have any problem with the concept of moving the structures to this location. It was continued for further discussion regarding window wells and some other aspects of the construction, but not the placement of the footprints. We've been before the planning board because the width of the driveway entrance is greater than that which is provided for under the zoning bylaw. We're actually reducing the width of the driveway entrance by a little by about 5 or 6 feet. And the planning board on Monday night voted to issue special permit relief with regard to that change. What we're trying to do by moving the structures to the north because of the configuration of the bluff on the site, which I believe you have the plans, the before and after plans prepared by Blackwell and Associates that depict. The effect of this is to move the house entirely out of the 50-foot buffer zone from the top of the coastal bank, and to increase generally the setback of all the structures from the wetland resource area and obviously the eroding bank. That's basically what we're doing. I'm obviously can answer any questions you may have.
Any questions at this point from the board?
No.
Anybody in the audience want to speak specifically about this one? No. Arthur, when do you propose to do the work?
It would not this summer. It would be done presumably next fall.
Okay. Then you'd be happy enough with us imposing limitations?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. I mean, it seems we've certainly granted a lot of relief up there.
Yeah, it's not increasing any nonconformities.
Right.
I suppose you could make the argument they could probably solve some of the nonconformities since they're shifting and still be outside of the 50, but.
Well, but then I think they'll just be back here possibly at some later date. The bluff is not eroding in that area, is it?
No,
Not
active,
not to the extent certainly that it is in other locations, but obviously, the whole process is dynamic, and it's obviously good to get it further away. And it's consistent generally. I think you all know the streetscape of Baxter Road in that area, and I
It would
think
almost look odd not to have it in that same location because they're so used to it being right on the street. It would be odd if
it would be odd, right?
I'll make a motion to approve it with the usual timing.
So,
Memorial Day to Labor Day, is that what we've been doing, or do we do October in Scots?
I think we've been doing October, but it's up to you. I think it's fine.
Memorial Day to Labor Day.
Yeah.
Does anybody feel strongly about the dates?
I think that's fine.
No exterior construction. Okay. Does anybody want to second Lisa's motion? Michael does. Okay. Any further discussion? No. All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you.
And the board consisted of the 5
yeah,
regular
I
members.
forgot that, yes.
Yeah.
Could you, I'm sorry, Jessica put it up here. Could you repeat the motion to approve as requested with
With-
moratorium?
Yeah. So the 5 regular members would have been voting on
Okay.
it.
And
Thank
the 5
you.
regular members are the 5 of us. Susan's-
Correct.
Right, okay.
Right.
And it's moratorium memorial to
To Labor Day.
Labor Day, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Arthur.
Should we take,
Okay, do we have TV? Okay, well, sorry.
1416?
Well, let me see if,
Kevin's right there. John's
well,
here.
Mr. Sullivan might be here. Is Mr. Sullivan here for 1116? No. Okay.
We go back to 10.16 for Goose Cove Lane.
Well, that would be Mr. Brescher.
He's here.
Oh, there he is. Okay, we'll start with that. Thank you. So we are moving on to.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yes.
I believe my client is attending, and he's planning on being here in the next
Okay.
15 minutes. So if Mr. Dale would like to go first, I'm happy to.
Okay.
Cede my
17
spot
South
to him.
Road.
Okie dokie. So
118. This page.
So, Mr. Dale, you're here for 1416 17 OSR LLC, 17 Old South Road?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
All righty.
Oh, hang on a second. I didn't see this one. I thought I did, but
Hold on one second.
I just had to check that.
Which one is this?
Old South Road, Fusaros.
I thought that the list looked awfully short. Would 11 be on the list? Does anybody know?
What was your question, Lee?
Whether I'm on the list, I'm on the wrong page.
Should be.
Shows that you have a conflict on here, but I don't know if it's correct.
I'm just looking for the list, sorry.
No?
I don't think we do. Nantucket, 19, Islander, Riseboro.
You are not on the list.
No, we're not on it. Okay.
They just give the lot number.
I know, sometimes they give the address and.
The address
They
would-
don't. The
yeah.
address would be very helpful.
What is your ownership, Michael, listed under?
No, you're not on it.
No, you're not on it. Okay, so there are no apparent conflicts. Go ahead, Mr. Dale, for the applicant.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kevin Dale for the applicant, 17 OSR LLC, doing business as Fusaro's Restaurant. And I think you may know, but just for the record, the proprietors of the restaurant are Tom and Stacy Fusaro. Tom is here with me today. This is an application for a variance to erect and use a awning to cover the front brick patio of the restaurant known as Fusaro's at 17 Old South Road. Property's conforming. It's located in the commercial neighborhood zoning district. It has an area of roughly 14,584 square feet. Currently, there is a restaurant building on the premises and a macadam parking lot. The outdoor patio, which you see on the plan that I gave to you, is approximately 20 feet by 30 feet. And the front yard setback in this zoning district is a minimum of 10 feet. The proposed awning, which would be a seasonal awning, would intrude or be 5 feet within the front yard setback. I should also note that the property line is a good distance back from Old South Road, and there's a privet between the property and the road layout. Mr. and Mrs. Fusaro would like to use this awning to cover the brick patio so their restaurant patrons can dine outside in inclement weather, protecting them from the wind and the rain. As you probably know, Fusaro's is an affordable year-round family restaurant that serves very good Italian food, and they've done well. But as we all know on Nantucket, to stay open all year round is a challenge. And having the awning over the patio would make sure that they would be able to afford their patrons dining during the season outside. Just to establish the prerequisites for a variance, this lot, the shape, topography, and the structures on the lot are unique and different from other lots and structures in this particular commercial neighborhood zoning district. Granting the relief would cause no substantial detriment to the public good. In fact, it would protect the public by giving them a safe and covered place to eat outside. As you know, awnings are typical for many restaurants in Nantucket. This board granted variance relief to Scoot Sam's LLC, known as Cinco's Restaurant, in 2006 with a very similar application. In that case, the applicant, Cinco's Restaurant, wanted to erect and use an awning over an outdoor patio that would be almost on the lot line. In comparison, Fusaro's or 17 OSR LLC would still preserve 5 feet from the edge of the awning to the lot line. And lastly, just this past year, in August, you granted a variance to Bonita Bar LLC, the Island Kitchen, to put a roof over an outdoor patio that would be literally 2 inches from the side lot line. So there's precedent for this relief. In the alternative, I'd ask that you say no variance is necessary. It's not a structure. Let Tom and Stacy have the awning. But I want to make the case for the variance. They have HDC approval for the variance. I strike that for the awning. They've also paid for it, and when they went to get the building permit, our zoning enforcement officer suggested that they go to the zoning board for relief because this was a structure within the front yard setback. So for those reasons, I ask that you grant the variance. I'm here to answer any of your questions, and I'm sure Tom would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
5 regular sitting members on this. Who is?
Well, anybody can participate.
Right.
It would
Who's
just
going
be,
to be voting?
it would be the 5 sitting members if there is no conflict, but that doesn't mean you cannot or shouldn't
Right.
Offer insight.
offer your insight, yes. Do you have some insight?
I was just curious. I think that we really have to recognize this awning as a structure for a variety of reasons. One, hurricane code, some of the other things that come into play here when you have patrons that are in this restaurant. There's got to be a little bit of a liability component to all of this. So I think, personally, this should be recognized as a structure, in which case the variance application would be an appropriate response to erecting this structure.
Okay. And so, Mark, are you saying if it is indeed a structure, the code requirements are a lot different?
There will be a building permit involved. The material would have to meet the fire resistant rating that's required for a canopy, and the structure would have to be properly anchored into the ground. And this would all be governed, recognized, and inspected by the building department.
As opposed to the other alternative saying he doesn't need relief and
And it's not a structure.
because it's not a structure.
But I think if he needed a building permit application, then it's a structure. And it sounds like that's where it got flagged.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I agree
I'm
with
saying
Mark.
I don't think we can ignore the fact that
Yeah.
people are under these things, and we know that some of these structures have collapsed, and there have been problems, there have been injury, not here necessarily, but it should be regulated as a structure.
Just for the record, we're here to proceed deeming it to be a structure and will comply with all those requirements and are prepared to do so, or my client is.
Will this have sides,
Side curtains?
side curtains?
They roll up on
Yeah,
multiple
okay.
straps, just, and the sides are only about that tall, because it'll anchor to the top of the pre-existing fence that's there right now. That privet stays, the fence stays,
Right.
and.
But
so
you haven't, so that if it's raining horizontally like it often
Right,
does,
from
you have
wind
to
to
protect
rain,
it.
I can drop the sides down.
So it's similar to what, doesn't the gallery have that, or did they? It's covered with a roof, but they have things that.
Yeah, there are any
there's a
number
few.
of places that have it.
Says on a
Because no
building
fish would
permit,
walk them all the way to the ground, it would just come to that existing
Mm-hmm.
fence.
says solid vinyl, fire retardant awning, cover the restaurant patio, approximately 875.
I would like Mr. Dale to explain a little bit better about the shape of the lot. It is odd. It's a rectangle.
Not quite a rectangle, but when you look at the composite of the shape, topography, structures, and improvements on the lot, it is unique. You'll see that most of the lot is covered by the parking lot. The structure, existing restaurant structure, is forward, and there really is no other available open space on the lot for outdoor dining than the front brick patio. So for those reasons, I think it's important to, if you will, look at the context of the property and not simply select one thing out.
I have a question, and maybe I can't see it. Oh, I see it now. It's 20 feet to the stoop. Is that what I'm seeing? So this brick patio is about 5 feet off the property line? Is there a
Yeah.
dimension to that?
Yes, that's correct,
5 feet, okay.
as will
And-
be the awning.
Right. And the parking that is already allotted is ample to allow these seats to be permanent seats in the restaurant?
When the parking calculations were done, we factored in that there would be outdoor seating on this brick patio.
Okay. So no change.
So there's no change in the parking calculation.
No.
Can you just provide some evidence to that before we sign the decision? I believe you.
Evidence of,
Just some calculation that the parking is met.
sure.
And I have another question. The site plan, or the floor plan shows on the, let me just get my bearings here, north-south, east side of the building, that the patio jogs out beyond the building as well as the awning. So has the awning been made in this sort of unusual shape that's outlined on page 129 of our packet? It's not a rectangle. It sort of jogs closer to the property line on the east, and then on the west it jogs closer to go in line with the front of the front of the building, and then it follows all these indentations. Is that correct?
I think,
Is that the shape of the awning? This is the shape of the awning? Sorry, I can hold it up.
Lisa, yes, you are correct.
Okay, so there's no ability to pull that awning back to have it, because it's made to have it in line at least with the structure and not going that extra 3 feet towards the side yard property, because that looks like it would be a variance request also, the side as well as the front. The side looks like it's 5.8 feet to the building, and then
Yes.
the awning sticks out beyond that a few feet.
It's not clear to me how much the awning sticks out, whether it's outside the 5-foot setback or within.
Well, it's
unless
definitely-
But-
it
it's
sort of looks like
definitely
it's
out.
got to be more than 0.8 feet out.
To the
but-
extent that the awning intrudes, encroaches, or is within the 5-foot side yard setback, would ask the board in its plenary power to grant a variance from both the front and side yard setback requirements here.
It would be nice to have a plan that just tells us what those dimensions are. I mean, I understand you just used an old site plan to draw this on, but it's helpful sometimes to see something with dimensions.
yeah, I think that's fair.
Could that be attached to the decision?
Yeah. I mean, maybe you know, Tom, like how far that patio sticks out beyond the east side of the building? Is it another 3 feet?
Not exactly, this one probably just shy of 3 feet.
Yeah, and then, so it's right up to the hedge. So if the
That's
hedge is a
correct.
couple feet,
Yes.
Well, this one doesn't have a dimension either. Well, I suppose you could try to figure it out, not even. Bottom line is you'd like to see a plan with that dimension.
well, I don't want to hold up for another month just to get a plan. I mean, if,
It's a
mean,
reasonable
I-
request.
it is, but I mean, if it's, I'm not presuming that people are going to vote for this, I'm just saying if it is acceptable, why hold them up for another month? He's got a 20-day appeal period, he's trying to open.
Right, I agree. They could just.
We'd ask that we be allowed to supplement and provide another plan, but not go another month, because as a practical matter,
Yeah.
it's May, the season's starting, the restaurant would like to have the awning up so summer patrons can sit under it.
But I think we would want to record it, have it attached to the decision, a survey plan that shows the actual dimensions to the terrace. And
Would Marcus Silverstein want that as well?
Yeah, and I will say, just because the applicant...
We will get you that
the
plan.
applicant decides to apply, or has to apply in May, it's not really our issue.
I know, I understand that, but I don't think it's going to, unless it's going to make a difference to the decision, why wouldn't we just have it, it's not going to make a difference.
Well, in fairness to
If
the
it's gonna-
excuse me.
Yeah, go ahead, Kevin.
In fairness to the applicant proceeded as if this was not a structure, obtained HTC approval, paid for the awning, applied for the building permit. April 24th, the zoning enforcement officer said, no, it's a structure, you have to go to the Board of Appeals. So we had no choice but to go in May. Couldn't have gone earlier. That's just a fact. Again, in fairness to the applicant, I'd ask that you allow the applicant to supplement the application, if you grant the relief, with a plan, a dimension plan, to be recorded with the variance.
Okay. Assuming that everybody is reasonably okay with this, so they're, and that plan, that we would get a parking calculation showing that the additional seats don't trigger additional parking needs. They meet the parking.
Well, is it additional seats?
I don't know.
It's not, but you just want to be
Yeah, yeah.
confirmed. Can I ask
This
you-
this seating exists, Mr. Chairman. This is part of the liquor license.
That's
This-
fine, then there should be no problem just showing that the
The
seating...
parking that's there is grandfathered. It's been there since before this was a commercial neighborhood zoning district. we're happy to get you that information.
Yeah, that's
But
all I'm saying.
in some ways, well,
I mean, is it a problem? Does it
It's
not
not a
meet
problem.
the,
No,
does
it's
it
not
not
a
meet the
problem.
parking
not a
requirements?
problem.
What does a COI list the seating?
CO
Certificate of inspection by the Board of Health, always lists the seating quantity.
I don't have that information. I will get it.
I mean, I'm happy to have that as a supplemental, I mean, as you can submit that
Fine.
without waiting another month, but I think it's only reasonable that you submit it.
Thank you for your indulgence.
So are there any other conditions anybody would like to impose? Is there anybody in the audience who wants to speak about this? No. Absolutely.
So the awning will stay up all year, yeah?
More than likely. I mean, it's engineered so it's able to handle snow load and more than likely.
Your hours of operation aren't changing.
Nothing is changing.
There's
The seating's
no
not changing.
entertainment
Nothing's
component
changing.
that
Other
we
than putting the roof over
need to
the
know about.
patio. We've seated people for 5 years. All of
I've
them
been
in
out
front, weatherproof it.
I don't have any, I just want to be clear, I don't have any problem with the awning and or the seating as long as it's kosher. I mean, if it's a function of creep and the seating is not in the parking calculations, then that may or may not be a problem, but you've said it's in there, so we'll just put it in as evidence of the fact. The last one we did, which was Scoot Sam or whatever that
Cinco.
was, Cinco.
Wasn't,
I mean, HTC condition, well, not obviously, but it was clearly stated if at any point in the future the applicant proposed to convert the cloth awning and framework into a more permanent overhanging structure, such as a porch or deck, further relief from this board shall be required to permit such conversion. Yeah,
That makes sense.
right. So we are not blessing the notion that the next step is walls.
That condition's acceptable to the applicant.
Okay, and then we would reference the plan, which would be attached,
Yeah, a new survey.
Yep.
and the parking calcs, and the seating. As Mark said, the COI should clearly state
Absolutely.
what the seating is. And
Yeah,
we have in the past on some of these, not Scoot Sam or Cinco, gone so far as to have no amplified music, no bar service out there.
doesn't look like, yeah, I mean, I think that's a good idea, not to have the bar. It doesn't look like you're planning a bar out here. So I think we could make that note in there.
Yeah.
Will you have amplified music?
Right, so then let's
Makes
just,
sense.
those two conditions as well.
Doesn't mean they can't serve drinks out there with dinner, right?
No,
No.
you just don't have a bar where people can hang out.
Yeah. Anything else? No?
Hours of operation staying the same, so.
No change in the hours of operation.
All right, so having said all that, does somebody want to make a motion to grant relief with those conditions, conditional upon getting a new plan and or parking calcs and COI that show that these seats are indeed? All right. Okay, Susan makes a motion, Michael seconds it. Any further discussion? So it's the 5 regular members. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have TV?
Okay,
Wonderful.
back to- right back to-
Okay.
I just didn't know if I missed it, but they didn't. I just didn't miss it.
Okay, so we are going to get into 04-16, Donald J. McKinnon, trustee of Nantucket 106 Surfside Realties Trust, a.k.a. Surfside Commons 40B, 106 Surfside Road, for the applicant. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Here with me today is Margaret Murphy, who's helping us with the computer, and Steve Schwartz from Goulston & Stores, and Gary Gardner from Shesky Architects, who's going to be doing kind of the bulk of the presentation. Arthur had to run out. We were making copies of this just as a backup, but I think he's coming back shortly, so he'll be joining us when he gets back. First couple of slides I wanted to walk through were really a follow-up to our last meeting with a couple of items the board asked us to address. I'm going to go through those first, and then after that, Gary's going to come up and do the presentation on the architectural side, and then I will follow with a few comments after that. So, if we could go to the next slide, Margaret.
Actually, I'm working on that.
Okay.
Is it, this presentation is in our packet?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
And what, Eleanor, oh, she's up there. Does anybody know exactly where that starts in the packet?
Right.
Just so I can follow along.
No, I'm in the packet room right now.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's so much paper. 153? That didn't work.
It's probably not the same pages as our iPads, unfortunately. But
Probably towards the end though, right? So
Yeah.
maybe it's in the second packet. Part 2. Is that part 3? It's in the staff supplement maybe?
I got to do some yoga breathing here.
Okay.
Look, why don't we try this? Why don't you verbally highlight the changes that were made, and we'll hopefully be able to go back to the.
I remember seeing a new
You
site.
mean the waivers for the?
No.
No, there were some site sections that were cut.
Yep.
They weren't
I was
any.
like, 'cause I know it
They were
was
not
like-
any larger than what you had submitted the last time, which was a little disappointing. Or at least they didn't appear to be larger on my iPad, but.
Okay.
Or maybe Eleanor knows. Do you know where their PowerPoint presentation is in our packets?
It should be in packet part 2,
Okay,
and there's a table of contents on the first page of packet part 2,
okay.
and I think that's page 1.
Oh, 153 of the second packet. There we go. That'll make it easier.
It's turned into a PDF, of course, so the resolution isn't as good.
Okay, I got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, but the audience members cannot see it.
No, I know. Oh, well.
This is not working.
Okay.
Well, I'm happy to share.
I'm happy to give my iPad out
Yeah,
to
yeah.
people if they want to look. I mean,
How does everybody in the
I mean,
audience
how
feel?
did we do it before iPad? People would come up and like look at the stuff that
I
we
know, but then we would have a presentation board with plans, etc.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
when the presentation is not visible, it's hard if you're in the audience to see it. Can you see?
We can all share one if you want.
yeah, I'll give you mine.
All right, we'll share.
Mine as well.
Sorry.
She's going to get her. Okay. Well, the first couple are relatively straightforward. Hopefully, the IT person might make their way back and can help us with this momentarily. The first, let's see, first slide, as you can see, just is the one that's shown on the screen right now. Just lists the project team and so forth. The next one, I believe, is the rendering. Everybody sees that. We haven't made any changes to that. And then it's the third slide, which is the site plan. And we have been asked to identify the buildings. So we used a lettering code that is the same code that we used on the plan that was provided in the field when we did the balloon tests. So if you're standing on Surfside, building to the far left is A, clubhouse in the middle is B, and then building on the right against the road is C, and then the buildings to the rear of the site, building on the left to the rear is D, and then building to the right in the rear is E. So that's really the only change on that plan. Oh, actually, we have the IT person coming in. And then the next sheet should be an aerial. And on the aerial, we have added a couple of elements. One is we basically show on the aerial the site with the site plan, Surfside Road, And then to the left on the aerial, we go out to the intersection of Fairgrounds Road, Surfside, and South Shore Road. The purpose of this aerial is to show the proposed new bike path that would run along Surfside Road on our side of Surfside Road from our site entrance to the intersection of Fairgrounds, Surfside, and South, and connect to the Fairgrounds Road bike path. So it just runs right along. There's plenty of room within the town right away to install that new bike path. Oh, actually, this is, we just have it. That's the one we're looking at right there. Okay. I'll just give them a second, because if we could, looks like if they could, oh, okay. So we have the bike path starting at the entrance with a crosswalk to get across to the current bike path, and then extending back, looks like our, oh, there we go, right to the intersection, so connecting at this point to the Fairgrounds Road bike path. The other items that we show on this, they're not showing up as well in this screen, are the distances to the surrounding homes in cottages on some of the abutting property. So the closest is to the homes on the 104 Surfside property, which is this property right here. And what we show for dimensions there, dimension from this cottage to our nearest building is 85 feet. There's then another structure, I think this might be another cottage back here. The distance between that and the building is 270 feet. And then the primary, or actually I'm not sure which one of these is the primary home, but then there's another home in this section. Distance between here and our closest building is 181 feet. So those are the dimensions on that side. If we jump to the 108 Surfside property, the primary home is back in this area. The distance from that home to our closest building is 201 feet. And then there's a cottage at the front of the property. The distance between the cottage and building C would be 156 feet. And then for the homes across the street, we have 276 feet from this structure to this home, 221 feet from this structure to this home, 150 feet from the structure to this home, and 275 feet from this corner of the structure to this home. So that basically just helps give a representation of where the new buildings are proposed in conjunction with the existing homes. And then next, what I was hoping to do is jump to the project data sheet and actually ask Gary to come up and start to walk through that and walk through the architecture. So here's this.
We're going to have to do a little interpretation of the data on here. Not everything is showing up on the screen, but to start with, my name is Gary Gardner. I'm with Shesky Architects. I'm the architect for the project. I'm pleased to be here presenting to the board today. The basic project data that we're working with here for this project in order of site area, which is not shown at the top of the screen, but the approximate site area is about 2.5 acres of land. On that, we've got 92 cars parked. On the surface, we've got 8 cars in garages. A total of 100 cars, that's about 1.7 cars, 1.78 cars per apartment. There are 5 buildings proposed on the site. 2 of them are 3.5-story with 15 apartments in each. These buildings total approximately 20,991 square feet each. There are also 2 additional 3-story buildings. One has storage underneath it. The other is above a crawl space. And the final building is a 1-story clubhouse of approximately 1,100, let's say 1,200 square feet. In terms of unit count apartments, there are 3-bedroom apartments, 2 bedrooms, dens, 1 bedrooms, 12 three-bedroom apartments proposed, 24 two-bedroom with dens, 18 two-bedrooms, and 2 one-bedroom plus den apartments for a total of 56 proposed in the 4 apartment buildings. Next slide, please.
Could I just see how it says 154%? If you make that smaller, will it make the slide fit?
You know what, there's something wrong with the monitor. It says that there's something bad happening here, so I'm really nervous about doing anything.
Okay.
What?
Yeah.
You can even
Let's see what you mean. Like, move
Yeah, like
this
right
down.
here. See, if
Oh,
you just
an
make it,
arrow down to the center there.
if you just make that smaller, it should make it fit.
Yeah.
I'll try. I just don't want to.
The screen is frozen.
Here we go.
There we go.
That's a
Keep
little
going.
bit better.
A little bit better.
One more click. Or not.
Oh, it's 150.
It's better.
Pretty close.
What I would love is if there is, because this isn't working quite as well, but we're fairly conversant with what has been presented to us. I'm not sure we need to go in through the apartment count and whatnot, unless you're going to be highlighting some significant changes to the submission, and I'm under the impression, having looked at this, that's not the case.
That is not the case. That's correct. Yeah.
I mean, well, let me pull the board. Do we feel fairly conversant with the design and the design elements that were presented to us months ago? I'm going to go to the audience. Would everybody like to go through this, or are we fairly conversant? I'm going to take the nodding as a yes. I don't want to be rude about it, but I don't know that I see the utility of going through this unless, let me just back up, there is some compelling argument you're going to be making for the size and scale and the third floor balconies and all of the things that have been identified as problematic elements. So if there's an argument that you're going to make that says this is a great design for this site, feel free, but I don't want to go through each slide explaining what is on the slide, because we know what it looks like.
Okay. We could.
Actually, just add a comment. I think what we'd hope to do, because I know you have the materials in front of you, is really just try to explain kind of the rationale behind the design and maybe kind of give a summary in that respect. We do have all the slides of the respective buildings, which it sounds like you're pretty familiar, so maybe we don't have to go through those in detail. But I know Gary did want to, from kind of an opening standpoint, explain how we got to the design that is in front of you and just explain his rationale behind that, which I think we can do that in a couple of minutes.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, thank you. So, who's our client for this building? And our client for this building is, average working person, somebody who works in the trades, a school teacher, somebody who's not making a ton of money, but a pretty good amount of money, and looking for a place to live. So, in terms of character, what architecture best expresses that in terms of the right approach in terms of look and image? And that top left-hand corner house could be anywhere in downtown Nantucket, let's say Orange Street, 2 stories, very plain. It's simple, it's practical, it's honest. It doesn't say it's anything but what it is. It's a nice house. It's got a little style around the front entrance. It's gray shingles, white trim, sloped asphalt shingled roof, fence out front, and a hedge. It really speaks to the character, I think, of a typical Nantucket house and a typical Nantucket resident to some extent. So the other images are really just expanding on materials Everywhere on the island, you see the shingles, you see the trim, the double hung windows, the sloped roofs. Trim can be tight and close to the structure, or it can be extended out like the third picture on the top right shows a more Greek revival approach to the pediment. Windows can be organized in a more defined pattern. Some are less defined. All these images of our downtown projects, the Center Street, Orange Street, and so I was looking at some of the larger structures for precedent in terms of how to deal with the size and the scale of the project. The Orange Street block next to the Unitarian Church is probably one of the larger buildings that is used as a multiple dwelling unit project. So we go to the next slide. Some of the larger buildings on the island, just once again, just to find precedents for buildings of the scale that we're in size. We're talking about Academy Apartments, South Road. It's a multi-use retail on the first floor, residential on the upper floors. Island Home, a larger structure, obviously not residences, but still residential building. So that those are the kind of precedents I looked at, and just thinking about the project we're proposing on Surfside Road. The next slide is just a straight-on elevation of the Orange Street block, one of my favorite buildings on the island for a number of reasons. But this building is about 120 feet long. It's got 4 levels from basement to attic. These 5 dwelling units are arranged townhome style. In other words, they're divided vertically so that each owner has 4 levels of living space. But there are 5 apartments, 5 dwelling units in this building. Our design, which is the next slide, is also, if we discount the last 2 bumps on the right-hand side, the same length. Actually, it's shorter. It's 110 feet. The Orange Street block is 120 feet approximately. So I just wanted to get a sense of scale in terms of size, and we have something that we all are familiar with in terms of the length of the building. So this building is organized. The ground floor units are not elevated. Most of the homes, structures in Nantucket are up several feet because we have to accommodate the Mass Architectural Access Board regulations. All the ground floor apartments need to be accessible, so we aren't able to lift the building up above the ground floor. So the ground floor apartments can walk right in, right off the sidewalk. So there's 6 doors you see in the image there, 3 on each side under the porches. The middle door is a door that you enter to go up the stair to the upper apartments. So we've got 2 levels of apartments, the full height walls, exterior wall, and the 3rd level apartments are within the roof structure. What the building materials are on the exterior, cedar shingles, painted trim, vinyl windows, asphalt roof shingles. I mean, those are the big chunks of materials on the outside of the building without getting into more detail. If we're just talking about precedent and establishing precedent and understanding the character of the style and the architecture of the building, that's pretty much where it's coming from. I think I could end there, but we could continue looking at floor plans and elevations of the other structures in the building. But if you're all familiar with that, we could bypass that.
I don't think we need to look at floor plans at this point. So, is that it for now? Do you have a question for Gary?
Please. If you could go back to the slide that shows the landscape concept plan,
Sure.
where the buildings are lettered.
here.
Second page. I think you need this one.
Well, I think this is the best one.
Okay. You've got, I think there's an entrance that's shared with the exit, and so you've got cars, trucks, and bicycles using that space in one to get in and get out. I'm concerned about the intersection between C and E and B, where you also have a playground on the other corner. I think there's 8 cars backing into that entrance and exit, and we haven't seen any dimensions yet, but I'm concerned about that area.
Mhm.
Very concerned about it.
Sure.
And can you comment on the how much space there is in that area?
Can you go back one slide, Margaret? It might be this.
It's not there.
Oh, it's not there?
No, that's why I use this one, sorry.
Oh, I see, okay. Okay. I know the area you're talking about.
It's a major intersection in the project.
Coming in the main entrance drive?
Well, it's actually once you're in the project,
Okay, so
you've got cars coming in, going out the same space, and you've got 8 cars backing into it, and then you've got a playground on the busiest corner in the project.
Okay. Yeah, let me make a couple of comments on this, and then I want to kind of expand on that with another direction that we're looking at. Yeah, presently the drive comes in. It's a 24-foot wide drive, which does meet the standards that the planning board is looking at. We do have a fence along this side where the play area is and so forth, so there is a separation for people that might be in this area. The backing distance, 24 feet is standard for vehicles backing into an area like that. We do have, we have gotten some other comments on the site, particularly from the fire department, in particular with the single entrance. The one group that, and we are looking at some other alternatives at this point. The one group that we have not got comments from, and we were hoping to get those so we could collect them together and respond in total, as we haven't got any from the planning board at this point. I don't know if those are forthcoming. Or whether or not there's any ideas on
Are they
what.
forthcoming?
I'm told they're forthcoming.
Okay.
It's laughable, and I apologize. I don't understand it, but sorry.
So with that, maybe I can just kind of segue, because we were going to ask where the planning board stands. With the comments that we have today, we've been trying to look at those and take them into consideration to see directions that we may be able to go in to try to deal with some of these concerns that have come up. We had another thumb drive, which I guess we're going to try to put in. If not, we have copies, because I do have some more information that I wanted to discuss related to this. We'll pass out the copies in the meantime. Yeah.
I will.
So next meeting, we have our own machine. I think I think we're going to bring that as a backup that we can use for presentation purposes. So what we've done is we've kind of collected the comments that we have to date. Like I say, we don't have them all, and in particular, we don't have the planning board. Oh, here we go. Actually, this one seems to be working. We don't know how. But these were some of the things that we were considering, and we're hoping to get some feedback. So if we can go to the next slide. Any luck? Oh, there we go. Okay. So can we go to the next one? We don't know? Okay, there we go. So these are some of the changes that we were considering, and really 3 primary categories, and then we have a slide on each one of these. We know that there has been a big difference of opinion on the sewer connection. So that's one of the items we're looking to make that we could consider changing. The other is reducing the number of apartments, and then the last category is dealing with some of the public safety requests. So any luck on going to the next? Okay, so let's deal with the sewer and the wastewater treatment first. We've recently gone out and done perk tests that were witnessed by the Board of Health. We also got information on surrounding wells and other things that would need to be taken into consideration. And essentially, our engineers are comfortable at this point that we could eliminate the sewer connection to the town sewer, and go with a private on-site package treatment plant to deal with our wastewater. Like I say, those tests have been done. We're comfortable with the information. We're comfortable with the data. If we went in that direction, we could design it in a manner such that the piping would come to a central point, which would need to for the wastewater treatment plant anyways. But then from there, we could have it set up that it could connect to a town sewer line if the town at some point in time elected to run sewer down Surfside Road. So that was kind of one of the areas that we're looking would be a direction that we could go to eliminate the concerns related to sewer. The next slide, reduce the number of apartments. Some of these kind of work hand in hand. So with the sewer, what we'd be looking to do is to try to get our sewer flow just under 10,000 gallons a day. That was on the prior side. To do that, we then would look to reduce our unit count, which I think helps us in a couple of other ways. So on the site plan, I know one of the concerns was the units that we had on the lower level on buildings D and E, which were kind of the walkout. So if we look to eliminate those units, we would basically cut back on our unit count. It would also allow us to keep the site grading roughly where it is today. So we would not have to do the site, the cut and fill that we were doing to essentially create that difference in the grade between the front of the building and the back of the building. And with that, what we've done is, I believe we're at just under 90 bedrooms on the site. We've cut back on the 3-bedroom units. We still need to have a minimum of 10%. So we have 5 3-bedroom units, 27 2-bedrooms, 18 1-bedroom units, and again, eliminated the lower level units on buildings D and E. We would also be looking to reduce our unit sizes in general, cutting back on some of the 2-bedrooms with den, 1-bedrooms with den. We haven't got to the point of updating architectural plans, and again, wanted to this more from a discussion standpoint today. But with that, we would then be able to reduce our building footprints, which helps us then on the site in a number of ways. We know today we're in that front yard setback with only 10 feet off the front lot line. We feel we could push that back to get to the 35 feet, which is the setback under the current zoning, and with that, we would then conform to the setbacks on all sides of the site, as well as eliminate the pool and clubhouse area. Does a few things for us. We've had a lot of comments of why don't you eliminate the pool, so it frees up land on the site, gives us more area for play area for kids, and quite frankly also helps cut back on cost, which would allow us to pay for the on-site package treatment plant. In addition to that, we would also look back. We have had discussions with an on-island management firm and would look to not build a unit specifically for the manager, help use the savings related to that, again, to pay for the wastewater treatment plant, and then look to have on-site, on-island management for the apartment complex. The next slide on the public safety requests, we have looked at adding the entrance on the north side of the site for the fire trucks as suggested by the fire department. Our engineers feel that can be done. Seems like that would be a good idea, as well as potentially even have a one-way flow through the site, which might eliminate some of the conflicts that were brought up a few minutes ago about everything concentrated at one area. In addition, again, by reducing the size of the building footprints, we think we could get the parking spaces from the 18 feet in length that we have today up to the 20 feet that's typical under the zoning on Nantucket. We're also looking at, with that, again, with these reduced footprints, to get the parking ratio up to 2 spaces per 1,000. And then on the recreational side, have the expanded lawn area. There were also comments about having an area where kids could bounce a ball, so probably, some type of not a full basketball court, but a basketball area within that play area. And then the last item, which was add the bike path to connect to the Fairgrounds Road bike path. So more from, we're at a point where we could start updating plans, could start providing some modifications, but wanted to, kind of present it more in a summary fashion today. And again, we know this is without having all the comments from the town, but this seems to be a direction that we could go to help address many of the things that we've heard today. So we're hoping to get some feedback on this end of it.
Thank you. In terms of the planning board, I know you don't have them, but I suspect they're going to be much the same as you've seen. Having said that, I appreciate the the thoughts of some of these changes. How does the board feel about getting some updated plans and beginning to see what it really means?
No, I think that would be helpful. I mean, obviously, there's a huge, I'm just trying to think about what was the units that get being cut, the number went from 56 to what?
52.
Oh, so that wasn't that large, actually. I thought it was.
Well, the bedrooms, I believe, went from, how many bedrooms did you have originally?
Was that?
22 to
Yeah.
88 or 89?
Yeah.
So the
Mr.
bedroom,
Chair,
yes, sir.
if I may, the Board of Health, when they're going to be looking at this, particularly if there's an on-site sewer treatment plant, will count all those dens as bedrooms. They don't have a choice in that. So we
Yeah,
really need
we're looking to eliminate the dens.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
so
you.
Yeah, I
those
mean,
are-
that would be on the applicant. I believe the threshold is 90 bedrooms for on-site sewage, so they would obviously have to comply with that if it gets to that point. I'm not saying that's the magic number either, but what it does is the sewer discussion is no longer germane. But they're again, so the number of units don't, as presently outlined.
It doesn't really change, but it sounds like the scale of buildings will change. Removing the eliminating a lot of the grade change, I think, is a huge benefit. I'm assuming the buildings would get shorter.
Probably not, maybe, not necessarily, maybe a little. I mean, we still need that third floor space for the unit count.
But you don't need to have the 55 feet in the back.
There may be a way to bring in the roof line to some
I
degree.
would still suggest that you bring in the roof lines. I also find that the, just in terms of your precedent shots for the architecture and what this building looks like, they don't go, there's no comparison. I mean, I don't understand how the Orange Street block looks anything like this building. The roof pitches are too steep. You know, it doesn't have the Nantucket character of architecture. And that's, I think, part of the massing issue. So I think if you could deal with the roof lines, because they have very steep roof pitches, they look to be at least a 10 and a 12, if not more. If those come down to what's a more typical historic pitch, which might be more like an 8 or a 9, then I think that would bring the building mass down.
Looking
quite
at
a bit.
Gary.
So, you know, I think they don't resemble Nantucket architecture right now.
Well, and not to mention the precedent, all the precedents were in town. I mean, there's a contextual issue here. These buildings are not in, right now, as
Right,
presently
they're-
designed, they're
they're
totally
right.
out of context.
That's right, because they're still in a very rural area where you have 2-acre zoning and you have much more open space around the buildings. So I think you have to keep that in mind when you're doing your redesign. Just because you're reducing units doesn't, you know, I think the scale of the structures and the impact the whole development has on the neighborhood needs to change dramatically.
Right, I agree. The roof lines are the issue. It's showing a building that's gray with white trim with a similar color roof, that doesn't make it.
So if I could just comment on that, because I do think, you know, these are very significant changes which we are considering, but the overall building massing, what this project is, we're not really considering changing that. And we feel very comfortable with the overall design of this project, as does the subsidizing agency, which took a very close look at this. You know, in the past, the subsidizing agencies, you know, design issues were not paramount for them. They are now. MHP took a very close look at the design, found that the design was appropriate for this site. I think that we're very comfortable with the 40B precedent in terms of design issues when weighed against the need for affordable housing. We just don't want to go down a road where people are expecting a wholesale change in what this project is, because I don't think that's forthcoming.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
The Nantucket Historic District Commission issued a 4-page comment on this particular project. I would like to address these one by one at some future meeting.
You can address them right now if you'd like.
How this project is justified in a rural context on this island.
And also, what about the letter from the housing, Deborah Timmerman's letter?
Well, that was Nantucket Historical Commission as opposed to Nantucket
Yes,
Historic
I thought that was an
District.
interesting point about.
Which point?
Well, just the point that this is the concern that a development like this and what its overall character will do to the whole island as opposed to specifically, just Surfside Road. It
Yeah.
is so out of context with this island. I don't understand.
To address Mr. Schwartz, we're hopeful that, we hear you, but we're hopeful that something better is going to come down the road. Because this is not, as it's presently designed, and I hear you that you're willing and hoping to change some of this. It is not very sensitive, is all we're saying. And we're hoping for some increased sensitivity.
Yeah, no, I think, some of the thoughts and ideas we put up today are direction that we can look at that in it, and I think, but at the same time, what Steve is saying, this is not, we're not taking 3-story buildings and making them 2-story buildings. We're not going to go from 56 units down to 20 units. To try to achieve what we need to achieve, we need to be somewhere in the size and scale. Looking at things like, reducing these footprints, eliminating the grade change, maybe taking a look at these roof pitches, I think those are directions that we can go. But to the extent that the Historic District Commission letter or the Historic Commission letters feel it's completely out of context, I don't think we're going to be able to do anything at to that level.
If you go back to your slide where you have the context photos of which you got inspiration, the difference between the scale of these buildings and those buildings is even the newer structures there have 2 full floors and then they have a roof. You basically have 2.5 floors before your eave line starts. In the context, they're not at all in scale with any of the, unless you go back to Academy Hill, which was a building that was built as a school. These are not in context with the residential structures that you're showing. They have extra height to them that is different than how a typical, even a full 2-story house with a full roof line and dormers would be built. So I think mass-wise they aren't in context with what you've shown us as your inspiration photos. And that's my point. And I think that's certainly the point. Some of the points of the Historic District Commission is there has to be a little bit more connectivity between what you're proposing and your context photos that you presented today.
Okay. No, I understand what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah, I'm hopeful that the next go-around will be, again, a little better, for lack of a better word.
Okay.
So, we can go through the points, but I think
we need to see a next stab at it first. I think you've heard this is
the
second meeting where we've talked about scale of the structures.
Yeah.
And it's clearly an issue for us and I think the neighborhood and the island.
And the other
boards.
and everything's met the same context.
So I don't know if it's I don't.
Yeah, I think with what we've put up kind of on our summary page today, deal a lot with the site. To some extent it affects scale where we bring in the footprints and so forth, or maybe adjust the setbacks. With these type of changes, is this a direction that it makes sense for us to now put this on a plan for your consideration for the next meeting?
I think so, because I don't think we can vote, we can respond to them without seeing a plan. This is all it sounds great, getting rid of the pool, the little exercise building or whatever it's called in the pool. That all sounds great. And the reduction in the bedrooms and the reduction in the number of apartments. But until we see, I'm more concerned about, and maybe that's just because, I think most people are more concerned with what these buildings look like and their mass.
And maybe by freeing up some site space, you'll come to a slightly different solution in terms of massing with the same number of apartments or less, a little more, or whatever. But yeah, we're hopeful.
Okay.
I look forward to the next step.
Okay. Okay, and then the other thing that we were considering, we're prepared to do for the next meeting was also to get into the traffic and have our traffic engineer come. Is that something that we should do at this point or not do? Our traffic obviously is based on the 56 units, so it's on the high side probably compared to this.
I don't know. I sort of feel like the elephant in the room is the massing, and I think we've got to get beyond that. I don't know how you feel.
I feel like they go hand in hand because Michael's concerns, I think, are really valid
Yeah.
about the traffic. And, I know before I brought this up, if there was going to be, and I don't remember the answer, so
Mailboxes.
the mailbox, whether it was, a central mailbox for all of these people, and it was going to be on the corner of Building C, which right now is the only in and out.
Well, I guess my point is that if the massing or the plan develops a lot based on the changes they're going to make,
it might
alleviate some of the issues we have in terms of Michael's concerns. I mean, we can't address that until we have a plan that we're all looking at that addresses these issues.
It seems like these are moving in the right direction,
Absolutely.
I would think.
Absolutely. With regard to the traffic, I'm assuming your expert's going to tell us it works now. So if we're reducing, I bet he'll say the same thing. So I wouldn't think, ultimately, whatever plan we think works, we're going to have peer reviewed in terms of the traffic. And we can start that process now, since you, again, or for the next meeting, you can present something for peer review.
Okay.
On that. Does that make sense?
It does, subject to what Eleanor's going to tell us.
Go ahead.
We have begun the peer review process. I got a contract months ago, so that's in place. And in fact, Tetra Tech's working with
Bristol.
Right, to get updated materials. I believe they've got
Yeah, they've got them.
last week. So the peer review will be ready at the next hearing if you're ready to present on traffic.
Yep. Which, I mean, we could present on traffic, and we could, provide at least some level of plan that reflect these changes, and possibly even on some massing, and continue the discussion.
Yeah, I guess my point was that I would rather, I don't want to waste a lot, not that it's a waste of time, but I don't want to spend the time on peer review traffic stuff if we don't get to a point on the massing that we think is appropriate.
Right.
I hear what you're saying and respect that. At the same time, there is a deadline of 180 days, which we've extended. So we appreciate being in a position to be able for the board to close the hearing in a timely way.
Yeah. Hopefully we can get enough massing information next time, as well as your traffic thing. What I don't want to do is spend a whole lot of information on traffic when we don't have a redesign. I'd like to see them both at the same time. So.
Okay.
With regard to the timing issue, let's just talk about that briefly. We're not trying to drag this out either. Just want to be clear about that. Yeah. That's not our intention. We have till November 30th. Was the
September.
9 is September. September 30th, right? So we have to keep that in mind. But I'm hopeful that the applicant, if we're getting close, there might be an extension here or there. But we're not trying to delay the process either. I mean, if these changes had been presented in a more substantive form right now, we would be discussing about them.
Yeah.
We'd be going over specifics.
That was my next question. Why?
Well, part of it is we've been kind of waiting for the planning board comments so that we could put everything together. But
it's going to be the same.
Okay, so I think we could be working. I guess to keep things moving along, I think it would make sense to just go through the traffic so we have an understanding. We think it can be managed, but if for some reason there's a question or there's a peer review, we might as well get that out on the table so we can talk about it.
Fair enough.
And then at the same time, we can update plans. One of our challenges is between now and the next meeting, we've got like 2.5 weeks to get these plans together. But I think we can get them together at least to a level that will allow us to talk about them and reflect some of these changes and be prepared to do that on the June meeting.
We had them now, because I feel like we could have made a lot more progress at this meeting had we. I mean, I don't think it's a surprise that we're saying this is a step in the right direction.
Yep. Right. Okay. We'll jump right on it then.
Are there any other specific issues we would like the applicant to see?
I had a couple of things that, they all have to do it. I have to go back to my notes. I know I made a comment that I don't know, when you look at the site plan, that you don't have any buffer other than the trees that are literally on the property line as buffer, you don't have any buffer of screening between your property line and the neighboring lots.
Right, the buffer seems, the trees seem to like sight line to the house, you know, they correspond on the plan.
Well, what I was saying, if you look at this plan, that's the property line. So the vegetation they're showing is actually the neighbor's vegetation.
Right, no, that's what I'm saying, because when you look on the one that they had the distances, where that one is. I was looking at that too. It, you know, it's like there's a sight line to this house, we put 3 trees. There's a sight line to this house, we put 3 trees.
I got it. Nothing consistent. So
there's nothing else.
I think when you're thinking about the redesign, I would hope that you could add a little bit more vegetative buffer on your property. Which I think
doesn't look like there's any room on this.
There isn't any room. But if they're removing the pool and the little clubhouse, hopefully that can get dealt with. Let's see.
Do you understand what we're talking about?
I understand what you're talking about.
So even this, I mean, that is the lot line.
That's the lot line is where the trees are.
Where the trees are. It's sort of a fake out situation. Has your architect considered in this, the notion of reduction, have you considered, at least in concept, maybe breaking these buildings up a little bit into, instead of 4 buildings, and I'm throwing this out, I have not given this great thought, 6 buildings, 8 buildings, sort of to give it a more, less of a giant monolithic building look, especially D and E that are separated by some tiny little bit of land are going to read as one monstrous building. So I'm just maybe. I probably shouldn't say it. We actually looked at combining the buildings because that actually opens up more room on the space. But we didn't put a plan in front of you showing that. But we didn't think that was the direction that you wanted to go. The challenge with breaking them up ends up being then we take up more space with building area, but. Well, maybe there's some creating again, giving up the clubhouse, the pool. You know, maybe there's something of giving up 30 bedrooms or whatever the exact number was. And maybe there's going to be an opportunity to make it a little more attractive.
Make it more, not even attractive. I mean, I don't want to say unattractive is the wrong word. But,
yeah, it is.
I make
apologize.
It more in line with the rural context. Yeah.
More contextual.
More contextual. I mean, certainly the buildings that are closer, I appreciate at this point that the buildings that are closer to Surfside Road are at least the shorter of the buildings, but maybe they can come down a little bit more, and so that there's a little bit more variation in scale.
Okay.
Or maybe there are apartments in the basement and not outside, and maybe there's again some other solution to this problem than what we have before us. So.
The architect has to pretend he lives next to us.
Yeah. Ed, did you have something to say?
If I could ask one question, make one comment. There's a disconnect. You say 52 units, but the summary of the unit types adds up to 50.
Our math is wrong then.
So is it 50?
Well, and this was really for discussion today. The goal was 52, so that divides better by 4. Yeah, but
in terms of context, again, I think progress has been made addressing some of your concerns. The fact is, as Lisa said, the white elephant is the massing. So I would suggest that rather than take a look at the existing plan, that the applicant start anew and find ways to address the critical issues. Massing, and part of massing, of course, is height. And as the chair said, think about perhaps more smaller buildings, but start fresh. Don't be limited by the plan you have now. And I would also suggest that the level of drawing should be preliminary.
Absolutely.
Don't spend a lot of time doing engineering. Come in with a concept that shows how you can address.
I almost don't care
the
what
remaining or most important issues.
I don't care what the floor plans look like at this point.
Yep.
That's immaterial. How you get your units in there to me, that's how you do it. It's really a massing and exterior appearance and site plan exercise to me, because I think right now the site plan is a little too rigid.
Mhm.
It's too lined up. It's not. It doesn't have that. If you look back at your site plan, these houses don't address Surfside Road orthogonally. They're all somewhat at odd angles. It's definitely just. It's not quite as. Your site plan is very rigid and buttoned up, and that's part that doesn't help. Is the scale of the buildings.
One more question.
Go ahead.
Given that you're under 10,000, I was surprised to see that you have a private package treatment plant.
Yeah, it's
You could do a Title V. Is there something special here in Nantucket?
it's the nitrogen loading.
Okay, so
The
you
primary
can-
purpose of the
can.
well,
But it's not a full-blown.
it's not a full blown. It's a package treatment plant targeted towards removing nitrogen.
So that's
Yeah.
going to save you, if a private package treatment plant is in the $1 million range, or maybe a little bit more than that, and also significant operating costs, being able to go to a lower capital cost in the operating system should, again, save money and give you a little bit more flexibility in coming up with a plan that satisfies the board better.
Mhm.
Okay.
Wait, can you say that again? I'm sorry.
The requirement for a private package treatment plant, probably a tertiary treatment, occurs when the number of bedrooms exceeds 90. It's not a coincidence that the number of bedrooms here will be right at 90. It's 87 based upon that count. I wondered why it was only 87. It'll be 90. Or 89, but it could be 90. You have to go through a long permitting process and get a groundwater discharge permit issued by DEP. As long as you're under 10,000 gallons, the local board of health is control of that. However, there are some special nitrate sort of elimination requirements, but developers can do that short of a full treatment plant. It's an enhanced Title V system. So my guess is that's what we're really talking about. And that is less expensive, and it's important not only from a capital cost perspective, but from an operating perspective. Because it becomes very expensive operating a private package treatment plant.
Anything over 10,000.
Anything over 10,000.
Well, so that was, when we get to the sewer, if we talk about that, that was one of my concerns is how is this going to be maintained, who's going to repair it, emergency reserves for it.
Right. And that's good, but
Upkeep.
DEP, in terms of getting a groundwater discharge permit, they're extremely thorough in terms of the operation, maintenance, and establishing capital reserves.
But that doesn't
for
have to happen.
That does
with
not have
this,
to happen
with
as
everything.
long as you're below 10,000 gallons per day.
Right, but
so
they
it'll
still-
be the town itself, through its Board of Health, that will be monitoring that, and reports would go to the town.
But I mean, but still, as far as maintaining, repairing, and all
That'll
of
be
that.
part of your comprehensive permit condition.
Right, it will be on the project, like
Oh, yeah,
on the
it'll be
tenant.
fully the responsibility of the owner.
Yeah, which isn't really my concern. My concern is that it's actually funded to be repaired and maintained and all of that.
On a
Normal
non-
economics enter into that. The value of the property is zero if you don't take care of that.
Yeah.
Right, if you can't use the...
Right. I'm just saying.
Yeah, no, it's totally legit, and we would get into that, absolutely.
Yeah, so we need to spend a lot of time.
I mean, we are the Board of Health in that regard, at least when we're doing the, if and when we get to the comprehensive permit issue.
You act for all local boards,
right,
but you certainly don't want to be responsible for one.
No. No. I'm looking for a new job. Let me go to the audience here, and does anybody want to speak about the direction things are going at this point, or have some, again, greater insight into what the neighborhood might be thinking? Feel free. I mean, this is the forum. If you don't speak up, I mean, we go ahead.
Well, I mean,
Just come down. I know you. Just come down to the mic and identify yourself, please.
Patrick Tafe. I mean, today they're telling us that
they may not need to hook up to our sewer. I think that's great. But 10,000 gallons, if they exceed that or their system fails, can they force us to permit them to hook up to the sewer? The U.S. Geological Survey says that the average for an individual is 80 to 100 gallons of water usage a day. So to meet 10,000 gallons, they couldn't have more than 100 people there. So I'm presuming that with 92 bedrooms or 89, whatever it turns out to be, that someone's going to make sure that there are not more than 100 people living there. But again, if it fails, do we have to permit them? Will the state, will someone force us to extend the sewer for them? And is there a way to test the property? I don't know if a perk test has been done, but we've been told that the soil is suitable for 10,000 gallons a day. I mean, is there any way to get an independent engineer to actually, can we run tests to see if that property will hold it? And, I mean, how many years will you be able to dump 10,000 gallons a day on that property? The life of the project, or, what happens? Just concerns about how they're going to dispose of, and if it's really feasible for them to do that.
Totally legitimate.
Just on one point, I can say, the Board of Health was out last week. They witnessed the perk tests and confirmed the soils were adequate.
It's adequate to discharge 10,000 gallons per day.
Well, they had the highest rate of perkability, I guess you would call it. So now it happens, our engineers now take that to design the system. But they did witness the test, the water was poured in, they confirmed, and they meet that highest level. And at the same time, it also has very deep groundwater, which is an important characteristic.
Okay, thank you.
And it would be impossible to base a system design on the anticipated number of residents. So what the state does is establish a standard of 110 gallons per day per bedroom.
Right, so that's where the bedroom count comes into play.
Correct.
90 bedrooms.
90 bedrooms times 110 is 9,900 gallons per day. Therefore, it's under the 10,000. Monitoring the number of people in the bedrooms, unfortunately, I mean,
Well, remember now, when you do a Title V system, you have to provide a reserve field if there's a failure.
Right.
Soils in Nantucket are a lot easier to read than in many locations. So your peer reviewer, Ed Pesci, is very familiar with soils here. That should not be, I don't think that will be a really great issue like it is on some 40Bs I've worked on. And certainly you'll do that. And that will go through a peer review.
It's an interesting question, though, about being able to being forced to be able to tie into the sewer at some point for whatever reason. I guess that would only be if there was a failure.
well, it would have to fail twice.
Because of
Arguably, you would put the reserve leaching area in, and then that would have to fail for there to be a true failure. I say that. I mean, are there mechanical? And as Ed said, a true failure renders the property basically valueless. So, sure, it can happen, and it's something we should consider.
Yeah, I mean, whether it's valueless, it's still a question of who pays to.
Right.
Like, what happens to all those people who are living there so it fails? Something has to happen.
Well, I'd be more concerned if this were proposed as a condominium, because
Right.
then you have a number of individual owners. Here, it's a rental developer, there's one owner, and it's this great motivation to maintain the value of the property. And lenders will be particularly concerned about this. You have an aligned interest with the construction lender and then the permanent lender. So I think there are safeguards, perhaps greater safeguards than there might exist in a for sale development with the treatment plant. But again, you will do rigorous peer review of the proposed system.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing to say that the applicant couldn't, at some future date,
Come to town meeting.
Come to town, or however one gets sewer. We're
And the
uncertain
applicant has
about
already
that.
said they're gonna design it so that if the opportunity arises to tie into a municipal system, which all developers would prefer to do, they're gonna design it so that that's possible. And that should be, frankly, that should be a condition probably of your comprehensive permit.
Okay.
And for next time, for the next session, I will look at the special act and see what it provides for, if anything, with respect to emergency connections. Certainly have to look at it.
Okay, that would be interesting to read. Okay, is there anybody else in the audience? Please.
Thank you.
My name is Mary Beth Farrow. I'm a direct abutter. I'm at 104 Surfside Road. My cottage is the closest building to this monstrosity going on next door. I didn't prepare myself for a public comment today, but I do want to present a couple things. I don't know where the septic new plan is being positioned on the property. I don't know if anybody knows that yet, if they could let me know. I have a well that is very close. They have my cottage at 85 feet to the corner of their building, and I have a well for the cottage that's very close to that building. So we're going to be close to that, wherever the septic is going. Do you know where it's going, if in the plan?
Pretty much in the area of the pool, so the pool is gone. So we go there. We did get all the well information for all the surrounding properties, and there are certain setbacks that have to be adhered to when there are wells, and the engineers did the perk tests accordingly so that it would fit within a zone that made sense.
And what's the distance to?
I think it's 100 feet is the minimum. I know we're beyond the 100 feet.
Okay.
And don't, I mean,
Maybe 300, it depends.
Yeah.
But the engineers, in other words, we would never permit, I would hope, or peer review of this system that would be proposed. It would have to meet the requirements.
They would have to go to the Board of Health with the septic system design.
For the Title V.
Yeah, we don't do that.
Right.
Yeah.
You would have a condition of the comprehensive permit subject to the issuance of
the Board of Health.
approval by the Board of Health.
Right, and they would be
And
looking at all that.
if there's a sensitive area, sometimes the board would require a monitoring well to make sure it doesn't become an issue. There are ways I think there are ways to address that.
Can I just a question about what you just said, Ed? The actual approval for the construction of the plant would be issued by this board in its capacity as the comprehensive permit granting authority. The monitoring, I believe, would be done on an ongoing basis by the Board of Health, but I don't believe we would need to seek a permit from the Board of Health for the actual installation, for the approval overall of putting this plant there. That's my understanding. But
but the board is not going to. The board does not have the expertise.
Right. They would obviously need to rely on advice that they would get from the Board of Health and from your peer reviewer, but we would not need to get a separate approval from the Board of Health.
And Mr. Chairman, I will look at that specific issue because I have to confess that I've never seen a on-site septic proposed under 40B or something quite this large. So I've not had that issue before. Certainly state-driven permits under Chapter 131, state building code, all of that goes back to the building commissioner and to the conservation commission. The straight Title V permit, as opposed to if you have more stringent regulations or bylaws for the septic, certainly as to those, there's no question that this board would sit if asked. With respect to the issuance of a Title V permit, I will go back and look at that. Again, I have not had that specific question before. My thought is that they would have to go to the Board of Health for that, but I hear what Attorney Schwartz is saying with respect, and then I can talk about that and what the basis is for his opinion. So certainly I want to look carefully at that.
Okay, thank you. Mary Beth?
I do have a couple of other concerns. I understand the need of the new bike path, but I realize that the town does own the property at the front of my lot of 35 feet, but I'm not quite sure that is just kind of another infringement into our privacy, because it's such a drop there from Surfside Road into our property. It's probably 8 to 10 feet higher than the road in front of my property. So that entails lots of fill and lots of trees cutting down and encroaching more into our privacy. Where their property is, the road and the property are level. But as you come down Surfside Road, it gets taller and taller in there as a drop.
Your property is lower than Surfside Road?
Absolutely.
By 8 feet.
I would say, I mean, when I'm standing there, the road is about up to here. It's a huge drop. And that hasn't been addressed at all. So the other thing is, as I was coming to this meeting today, I drove by the school, and I thought to myself, okay, here's a 2-story building. Take that frame, multiply it times 5, and plop it next to my house, because that's about the size of our buildings that are potentially going in next door. I'm sure they're a little bit bigger, but with him speaking of a 2.5, 3.5, whatever amount of stories is building, it's just totally out of scale with the neighborhood. And I appreciate that you're considering the massing as one big important issue, because it certainly is to our neighborhood. The screening is another big issue with me. I think on the original plan you have a 4-foot fence. I mean, I don't even know what that does. I don't even think it blocks a headlight coming into the cottage. I think don't even bother with a 4-foot fence. I'm hoping that there will be lots of tall fences, big plants. He's using our wild trees as the screening, and I think that that's not correct, because he has basically cleaned right up to the property line without any regard to anything. So I think that's another big concern that we all have. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else want to talk about this?
Jane Valero. I live on 9 Gladlands. Come out of my house, and the exit to Gladlands is directly facing this project. My concerns are the same as Mary Ellen just expressed, of course. Also, the amount of vehicles, the amount of parking spaces in this project, it just baffles me, because I just can't imagine where they're going to put anybody that comes to visit, anybody that comes for dinner, anybody that picks you up. With all these bedrooms, I know very few people that only have one vehicle in their household. And I just can't imagine having all these vehicles on Gladlands Avenue, or going into our entrance, or on Surfside Road, or how any of that is going to be addressed. I cannot imagine where all these cars are going to go.
Thank you. Yeah.
I think visitor parking is an important thing, and we haven't gone there to that yet. And I know that with the reduction in the bedrooms, you know, it went to 2 cars per unit. But I think you do have to consider that people will hopefully have visitors every now and then, and there needs to be a place for visitors to park.
Absolutely.
So that should be part of the revised site plan.
Yeah, again, it's as the last 2 people in the audience spoke, the screening and the landscape detail, we're not looking for details at this point, but we're looking for a little more flesh on the bone, and not utilizing the neighboring vegetation as you're screening. So hopefully the new site plan will begin to show some of that.
And if you're not doing all the fill that you were anticipating before, can you do some more side sections? Will the retaining wall, you had a retaining wall along the, I think it was the side that borders 104 and then all the way along the back. You know, I'd be interested to see if that retaining wall is remaining or how that changes if you're not doing the fill that you're anticipating.
But yeah, that was on the cut side. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Anybody else want to speak?
Michael wants to speak.
We'll go to the audience first. Go ahead, Cormac.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Cormac Collier, Nantucket Land Council. As you probably know, this site is in the Zone 2 to the Public Wellhead Recharge District. The regulations currently say no more than 2,000 gallons per day shall be discharged. They're going almost up to fivefold. I hope that they will be presenting in a timely manner the full specs and details of their package treatment plant or on-site disposal system, whatever they do want to call it, so that we can get a peer review, so that you can get a detailed peer review. This is going to be fundamental in terms of the protection of our water quality. This is a huge switch. This is going to be the biggest disposal system in our wellhead recharge area. So I hope that we spend a lot of time on it and give it its due review. Thank you.
Thank you. So the current Zone 2 allows for 2,000 gallons a day?
Up to 2,000 gallons per day.
Per what area?
It's probably per individual disposal system. Yeah.
So three-bedroom system.
Yeah. It's very difficult to get that under Title V, but that's what ours is, and it contemplated other larger areas.
Well, arguably, that would be like 18 bedrooms. Is that right?
Something like that, at 110 gallons per bedroom.
But again, isn't it normally per gross area? In other words, it's not all of Zone 2 is 2,000 max. Is it per acre? Is it per 10,000 square feet? Is it?
It's probably consistent with the 110 gallons per 10,000 square feet. So they were whatever 2,000 gallons per day. Equate that to a 10,000 square feet. So you're talking about a large piece of property for 2,000, which would be multiple acres, 30, 40 acres, not a 2-acre site. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
On that point, I think there may be within Title V provisions that if you provide enhanced innovative systems, there's relief on that. Their engineers will be all over this.
As will ours, and as will anybody else's. I mean, we're not going to take what is presented to us as gospel truth.
Yeah, it sounds like, Cormac, that the Land Council is willing to participate in that discussion, which is helpful.
I mean, from the applicant's standpoint, I'm going to assume that your engineers have told you that this is at least feasible, maybe not in detail yet.
Yes, that's correct. I mean, our preference in our original application was to connect to sewer because we think that is the best direction to go. But if that isn't going to be available through this board, then doing an on-site system seems like the best alternative.
Okay. Please.
Hi. Jessica Davis, 108 Surfside Road. My question is actually about the traffic. I know that there's a proposed development going on Old South Road that's supposed to cut through to the boulevard, and I thought I read that the town will now be paving the boulevard as well. Well, is your traffic report going to include that development that might be going up? Is it going to include the traffic that people are going to use the boulevard now to cut through from Old South, from the airport? Is this going to affect Surfside Road? I just want to know if that's being taken into consideration. Also, the fact that I'm at 108 Surfside Road. the bus does not pick up for children at 108 Surfside Road. So that means any families that will be living in this development will not be picked up by the bus. We're too close to the school to be picked up. If I wanted to be picked up, I'd have to walk down the road. Is that going to be taken into consideration too? Families living in these households? That's the question I have.
So what is the radius on the school bus? Do you know? Go ahead.
For the elementary school, it's 1 mile. For the middle school and high school, it's 1.10 or 1.25. But residents can petition to be picked up. They have to go before the school committee, and they can petition to be picked up.
Okay.
They won't necessarily get it, but they can petition.
Right. And I'm not a traffic expert by any means, but I'm getting, maybe Ed, you can help me. Would the traffic study take future development, not specific future development, but the notion of future development into account?
It's one of the requirements of the EIAS.
So there would be some factor, 10%, 20%, whatever the number is?
Yes.
But if we know, I mean, is that just sort of a
They have
theoretical
to take
number?
into consideration all proposed development, and then there's a general escalation also. It's a very small percentage.
But if something's on the books, if you will, or in process in terms of the development.
They need to take that into consideration in doing their analysis.
And how far along in the process does that future development have to be?
I don't know that.
Yeah.
But again, you will be doing a traffic, well, you have a traffic peer review in the works. And one of the critical parts of that peer review is to make sure the assumptions that are used by the applicant's engineer are reasonable. And that projection of future increases in traffic is one of the assumptions that the peer review will examine. And normally the applicant's peer review will meet with the town planner and make sure he or she is aware of proposed developments.
Okay. But that's something we should make sure happens. Michael, did you have a question?
Yeah, it's along the same lines regarding the bus, but not the school bus. I was thinking more of NERDA. Is anyone other than me on this board interested in a drive-off area for a bus on at least one, maybe two sides of the road, like you've got on Old South Road?
Yes, I think it's a good idea.
And you could reroute the bike path around it.
Yeah. I'm curious, who control the bike path that's proposed, not told it is a proposal, is in the town layout. Is that a matter of right that you have, one has the right to put a bike path there?
No, at least a license would have to be sought in order to do the work, or even an easement. It would depend upon how far they're going. If they're going beyond the front of their own property, they're going to have to get the permission of the town, no matter what, whether a license is.
Well, in that regard, is that us again?
No, that would be them going to the town and getting the necessary permissions for the underlying property interests.
So from the Board of Selectmen,
And potentially, depending upon the level, whether it's a license or whether it's an easement. If it's an easement, it would require town meeting. If it's just a license, then the Board of Selectmen can do it. There's also the potential here, though, if the town is in favor of it, that a license would be given, and there would be the potential that it would just be taken over and granted to the town and not to the owner. So then we would not be need to go further and get license.
Okay.
Yeah, just to add to, I mean, our sense is that would be a public bike path. It's on public property. It'd be open to, obviously, it's going to be out there and available, so I think other people would want to use it too. So our whatever permission we'd need through some form of license to construct it, but basically construct it in accordance with town specifications, and it becomes a town bike path.
Okay, just yeah. It's the same thing that Michael just brought up. I mean, if there was a pull-off on the
Yeah.
for a bus, which is a good idea. I don't know who controls that.
Within the right of way owned by the town, and they would need to come to the town. Not to me.
I would be interested in exploring the idea of shortening the bike path, bringing it out the north side of the project, and keeping the bikes away from the trucks and the cars on the entrance and exit.
Okay. Well, that sounds like it could be possible, especially if we had that north entrance into the site.
Or even if it's another sidewalk into
Yep.
the development.
Okay, good
Something
point.
like that. That's a great point, Mike.
Linda Davis, 108 Surfside Road. Mr. Chairman, we as a group are baffled why a bike path there. I've lived at 108 since 1980, so 35 years, geez. And when people are on the bike path, their brains are on vacation, 90% of the people. And we've seen some of the most craziest things there. My concern is now, when you come down Fairgrounds Road on the bike path there, at the four-way stop to go to Surfside, there's a four-way stop. There are crosswalks painted in the road. You go across, you get on the current bike path, and you go out to Surfside. Now, Tommy Tourist is going to come down Fairgrounds Road. He's going to see this bike path here. Then he's going to see the crosswalk and the bike path across the street. Well, sure as shooting, Tommy Tourist is going to take this one because it's closest and he doesn't have to cross the road. So now he's come down to 106 Surfside Road, and where do I go now? So now I have to cross the road to get onto the real bike path. So right now we have two places just on that short section of road from 106 to the intersection with two crosswalks for bicycles and pedestrians. People don't come around the bend at 106 slowly. They're in a rush to get to the stop sign. You are opening up accidents and pedestrian problems right there. Why a second bike path? I don't understand that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I tend to agree. I think the crosswalk is a great idea, but I think that just having a short, I mean, I'd need to think about it more and see more, but
Yeah, we should think about it.
but I do agree with that. I think it's confusing, and having a bike path just to service, I think
One
maybe what
development
Michael was
essentially.
saying, maybe a sidewalk entrance or a bike entrance that's on the other side off the fairgrounds bike path makes more sense. Still having the crosswalk, because there will be a bunch of people coming from that development, but the bike path seems.
Well, I think the
curious to me.
bike path discussion came about with the notion of 132 or 22 bedrooms, people in the development having to cross Surfside Road
Right.
to get to a bike path. There's obviously the other side of the coin.
Right, and we were also talking about younger inhabitants
Right.
that want to ride their bike.
And I totally get
Yeah,
those
so
points,
it's
but
a-
I think
it's a-
that it will create more
Yeah.
confusion the way that it's currently shown than it will alleviate problems. And I'm just one person, but.
Well, I think we need to think about that. We need to think about that with regard to traffic safety again, and/or, I mean, there may be adequate signage that can be erected. So.
Yeah, I mean, my concern is that I hadn't even really thought about what Linda was saying, but like, Tommy Tourist, and this happens on Old South Road all the time, where people either don't get on the bike path, but then they're riding their bike in Old South Road, even though there is a bike path, and on the wrong side. So my concern would be that Tommy Tourist or whoever, or anybody, just doesn't use the crosswalk at 106 and then continues on their way to Surfside, either in the street and perhaps on the wrong side of the road, and that creates a bigger problem. I don't know, it happens like Old South all the time. So.
Not to add confusion to the bike path discussion, but there's one other piece you may want to take into consideration that we were made aware of. I guess there's a thought, I don't think it's an immediate plan, a thought that at some point in time there could be a roundabout at Fairgrounds, South Shore Road, and Surfside Road. If that were the case, the idea of having a bike path on our side of the road that would connect to Fairgrounds Road means that people that would be on the bike path don't actually have to go through the roundabout across at a roundabout. So that's at least one positive side, having a bike path on our side of the road. As the tourists approach the roundabout, they actually wouldn't have to get into the roundabout to actually continue on Fairgrounds Road.
Right, but then you
So
have to extend that. It would have to extend beyond your property. It would have to extend all the way out.
at some point, and the Surfside bike path, as you know, as you get close to the beach, does cross the road again. So, it does it crosses at other points. So I just want to make sure I brought up the roundabout so you're aware that that was at least part of the consideration as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes?
Just as far as the
Just, you have to come down so everybody can do your thanks.
Just a thought, as far as the traffic goes with bicycles, I know sometimes when I'm coming out of Gladlands, I have to sit there for quite a while because people are coming, especially when they're leaving the beach or they're heading to the beach. They're 5 minutes or so, which is fine. I have no problem with that. But I can't imagine all those kids on their bicycles with their parents pulling their chairs, trying to make 2 crosses in that road. I think is a very, very dangerous situation as far as crossing the road there. And having 52 units with all those cars coming out of this development now, adding to the mix with a bicycle path there, I think is just a very poor. It's just a disaster.
It's a fair point, and it brings up the general point of safety, which, again, there's no magic number that has been agreed to yet in terms of bedrooms or anything else. So obviously, the more people you have there, the more cars, the more unsafe it is. So we're trying to get there. Go ahead, please.
Just on the note for Mr. McKinnon's rotary that he was talking about that may go up there, every other rotary on this island has a crosswalk. So if there was a rotary at that 4-way intersection and people were coming up Fairgrounds to go onto Surfside, there could still be a crosswalk at a rotary. There is no need for another bike path. A crosswalk is a crosswalk, whether it's a rotary or a road. People will figure out how to use it.
Again, I think the bike path idea was simply for the inhabitants of the development. So we have to weigh all that if it gets to that. Is anybody else? No? So I think we've, what? Are you showing me your time? The time?
I think some
the
people
clock's
that
up
want
there. I
to
can
get
see it.
I was going to make a motion to
Yeah, that's fine. I think we've get. I mean, do you feel I think we're comfortable. We've given you enough information as to the direction we're seeking.
So I'll make a motion to continue until the next hearing, which is June 11th.
When's the next hearing?
June 9th.
June 9th.
Second.
June 9th. Yep, over here. Okay. So 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock. June
Thursday,
9th.
June 9th.
Yes, please. Okay. So there's been no. Did you second it? Michael seconded it. All those in, any further discussion? No, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Let's take a brief recess, and then we'll begin again.
We missed this boat.
I understand.
Mitigation projects, innovative systems.
Great. Okay, I'll try to do this. I may have a
They live back.
on my phone.
Hey, Alan.
Sure. Did you, which class?
You were in the audience.
We've been like that for like 12 months now. Fine. It's really good. That would be good. One foot on the floor? No. That's where it just This is new stuff that's coming up now, right?
Yeah, so all the regular things, I didn't
Taken
have
off
40
today?
stuff. Just to make sure the resolution
Can you? Send us this?
No. She's going to Wesley.
Even though we're sending that off 3 times?
Yeah. So yeah, we're going to stop.
Somebody said,
Where do you find it?
all comes in.
Isn't the airport actually itself?
Columbus, Ohio.
Yeah, but I thought the airport, the Columbus airport was in.
There might be one call sequence that they're playing in Kentucky, but the airport here in
What time
Ohio. And you're going over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's already over there.
Oh, right, she's there. So you're meeting there.
Not exactly. We're coming back together. But she's in the Eastern.
Okay, she's not coming over to vacation. You golfing?
She's not playing golf anymore?
She's not going on the
No. She plays though.
Yeah, I've seen her play.
What do we got now?
All right. Because,
Yeah, the one who's a good fish.
No, the one that went in town.
That's what Concord.
No, place like that.
100%.
Doing a fair amount of, no.
Oh, Louis.
I don't know why they
Really?
Okay, so you ready? Okay, so let me see what we've done and
Not much.
what we. Whoa.
I thought we did a bunch.
Yeah, me
I did
too.
too.
All right, so we are on. Are we all ready?
Yeah, we're back
Terry,
on the old
you're
business,
good?
right? For Goosehead Lane.
Eleanor, we're waiting for Eleanor. So we are on 1016 MHD Partners Real Estate LLC, 4 Goose Lane. The applicant, Steve Fletcher.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. For the applicant, Attorney John Brescher. I have, just as a quick recap, this is a project whereby my client owns property over on 43 Tennessee Avenue, and they are going to be moving a cottage to 4 Goose Cove Lane, which is a vacant lot. And the height of the building, as it presently sits, is 25.5 feet in the Village Height Overlay District, which has a maximum height of 25 feet.
4 Goose Cove Lane is a piece of vacant land, and he is moving the house to this vacant land, and as a result is requesting variance relief because the height of the building will continue to be 25.5 feet. At the last hearing, you requested additional information. I submitted information to Eleanor last week showing a topographical survey from 1972 showing the grade of the lot, an updated site plan which shows the topography and the elevations of the lot. As we discussed at the last meeting, the owner filled the lot and grade to a level that's similar to the surrounding properties, as evidenced by the existing grade survey. And this was done prior to submitting any HDC applications or any building department building permit applications. Again, as a result of these, the fill is up to the level of the existing cul-de-sac and the neighboring properties. I've also submitted using the online GIS map showing what the topography is as of, I believe it's December of 2014. So you can see what the fill and the grade and the elevations were when the tennis court was there.
What page was that on, John?
That's on 42.
42 of ours?
Yeah.
Thank you.
As mentioned, variance relief is requested, even though the existing structure is a pre-existing non-conforming structure because of the height. In this instance, variance relief is appropriate because the shape and topography of the lot are unique, and more importantly, with the Village Height Overlay District, the purpose of that bylaw is to protect the views of neighboring properties so they can see the sunset and the water over in Nantucket. And for this property, there's an existing 20-foot view easement in favor of the most immediate abutter, which is designed to protect that neighbor's views of the sunset and of Nantucket. In this instance, I do believe that variance relief is appropriate. I don't think that granting this de minimis relief would substantially derogate from the intent of the height bylaw as it pertains to the Village Height Overlay District. With me is Mickey Rowland, the architect for the property, and Don Bracken, who has fair amount of knowledge about the and history of the site, and they may be able to answer any questions that you have.
Go ahead.
I think the last time we met, Mark Poor actually asked for the HGC approval to find out if you had requested any fill. It sounds like you did not because you had already previously filled the site.
Don't check, but I believe that's correct.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, I guess, the question is, the bylaw does not allow for filling of property unless you height average the existing grade with the proposed grade. The fact that you filled all this prior to doing any of your permitting and then not incorporating that into the calculation doesn't sit right with me. Again, I'm not saying that it shouldn't get relief. I'm just saying that the figures as we're looking at them are not correct because he went and filled prior to doing any permitting. The building needs to be taller because he filled from tennis court up to elevation 10 or 12, wherever his finished grade is. So, the building height should be 3 feet taller.
Don Bracken, Bracken Engineering. We were concerned with that in the beginning when we first looked at the project, and I talked to Marcus Silverstein about that issue, and he specifically said that the ground elevation at the time of the application is what's considered the existing grade under the definitions for height. So this is what we were told by the zoning enforcement officer. That's how we move forward with the project as it was. And so the plan was to fill it at that existing height, and that would be existing, and there are no proposed changes in the proposed grade. Therefore, we don't have an existing and a proposed to average out as we typically would.
Right. And I understand that, this is a slightly different situation than if you had somebody that had a site that was flat and they mounded up, and then we're trying to put their
Why
house
is it
up.
different? It's no different. It's exactly like it. It's crazy. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Well,
No,
it's
no.
a little different because the grade,
On either side of
the
him,
original
very-
grade
is very,
Was not up there. If you look at the GIS, the two wetlands connected at an elevate. They gave us the
yeah,
right
I saw
here.
that, yeah, the long pond thing.
There was always a depression. They happen to put the tennis court in the depression, and now there's no evidence that was dug out for the tennis court.
Well, it's obviously dug out a little bit more just because it's sort of a nice, neat rectangle on the new GIS,
Yeah.
but
No.
yeah.
Yeah, clearly, but I have a real problem with this.
I mean,
I have
I
a
think
real
it's-
problem with filling ahead of time, whether you're mounding or just plain filling, and then saying, this is an existing grade. Now, if Marcus says that's kosher, which he said to you, and
That's what we base it on.
I don't disbelieve you. Just give me a letter that says that's the new interpretation of grade out here. You can take yards of fill, you can create a new mountain and put your house on top of it.
And not have to say.
And not have to say that there was a change.
If it's sloping like this and you decide to build a 4-foot wall and do that, then you don't have to average that height in? That just doesn't
I
seem-
agree it defeats the purpose of the bylaw, but that's the way it's interpreted and that's the way it's written now. Obviously, maybe it's something to be changed, but I do also want to point out that area was definitely excavated and made lower. I don't know if there was an existing slight depression there before, but the test pits that we did around the tennis court, there was no evidence of any topsoil or subsoil. And looking at the old USGS map, it doesn't show any depression in that particular area.
Well, can I ask you a question? Why
Sure.
wouldn't you just height average it? Because it's you're asking for a variance. Why not height average it and get the height correct based
Well-
on how we interpret the zoning bylaw?
I suppose that is an option if
That's what we asked for last time.
and we could basically it would be another 3 feet approximately. So
Yeah. So write that into the decision so that we have accurate figures the way we think the zoning bylaw should be interpreted.
Well, I think there are two things here. If Marcus is interpreting the bylaw now that you can fill whatever the heck you want, just put it in writing from him so we can put it in the record that is the new definition of fill out here. Run amok, do whatever you want, which is fine. If everybody knows that, and again, I don't not believe you. I just want it in the record that Marcus said you can fill ahead of time, and that's where we take grade from. Which I might add, editorially, is ludicrous, but that's not on you.
And another example is right next door, the same process, and it was a new house, so they were able to design it to meet the 25 feet, but it was based on the material that was brought in. So.
Yeah,
I'm just saying, as far as interpretation from the building department is
then that
concerned.
house, theoretically, if it's interpreted the way that I was assuming the zoning bylaw was interpreted, the new house would not meet the zoning set, the height requirement.
The neighboring house.
The neighboring house that you just spoke of, because it's 25 feet, but from a filled site, it's 25 feet.
Correct.
So it would have needed relief from this board.
Correct. I just state that as an example of a recently approved project that went through that process.
But does the building department really know that the fill has taken place? Is that clear when the building permit application goes in? I mean, I think in fairness to the building department,
Right.
they don't know that somebody's brought in 5 feet of fill before they've started their foundation. They have no idea. So it's disheartening to hear that that's what's happening out there.
It's more than disheartening, but again, if it is what it is, then let's just get it out there. That this is, you can fill anything you want. You have a depression, it can be a mountain if you want to pay. And again, I'm not speaking specifically to you guys. I mean, you did what Marcus told you to. Just get it in writing that he told you to do that.
I'd like Marcus to come in, and not for this specific application, but I'd like to hear it from him.
Don, I do have a question on the GIS, the USGS thing. I mean, it shows clearly that these two wetlands, can I show it to you?
Yeah,
I mean, if this is the site, which I'm going by, they
It's hard to
connect.
tell.
That would be, but then now there's a land bridge in the middle.
I don't think they actually ever connected there. Looking at the...
Well, I'm just saying, looking at what was given to us,
Right.
which is this, I'm looking at, there's no elevation change there. So in
Right.
essence, they connect. I'm not saying they connect.
Yeah, the problem is these are 10-foot contours too.
Yeah.
So.
Right, I was
hear
going
you.
to say that it's not extremely, that's not
Well, I'm
giving
saying
enough
this-
information to determine that
No,
the grade that's out there at all.
I agree, but it was
Yeah.
presented to us
Right.
as here's something that shows something in our defense, which
Which I don't
arguably
know.
it's
I don't think
not
it
in
shows
your
anything.
defense.
Yeah.
I don't mean to be a pain, but it's just so disheartening to me that you can do this. So I want Marcus to go on record at the ZBA that this is kosher, and you guys happen to be here doing it.
But I do want to make it clear, I'm not against the application, I just want the figures to be correct.
So if, in that case, you would be willing to say, simply change the figures, do the math, 29 and a half feet.
Yeah, and I think, everybody, the neighbors should have come to us too. I think that's, if he indeed is building a house that's over the zoning the way we interpret it, and that was clear to the building department, I mean, anybody that is building over the zoning bylaw height with the height averaging needs to come to the ZBA. And so you're here, and all I'm questioning is the 25 and a half feet because I don't think it's accurately done based on how I would interpret it. And, but it's still, you've noticed it correctly because it's a variance either way if you're 25 and a half or 28 and a half.
Yeah, I mean, just taking a step back for a second, I mean, I don't think it's a mystery that the height bylaw ultimately should be retweaked and reworked within getting some, or, the section within, the building department, just to make sure that everyone's on the same page.
I sort of feel like, and I don't know how you feel about it, Mark, I felt like everybody was on the same page, that if you brought up your grade, you had to height average. And that you weren't able to go in and plateau out your site and then start your grade from there. I mean, I could see maybe you would disagree with this, but if it was 20 years ago, hey, maybe, but it's not 3 months before you start the project. I mean, I think that's
I think it just smacks
not right.
Not right.
But at the same time, I don't think anything that was done was necessarily wrong. I don't think anything was flagged per se. And that's why I mentioned the perhaps retweaking and reworking in the future to make sure that
I think it's an incorrect interpretation of how the bylaw has been used in the past 10 or 12 years that it's been here. Personally, I don't think that they were intentionally doing anything wrong. And again, I think I think I would vote for the relief to get you because you're moving a building over there but it just isn't, the way that the application is written isn't correct in my view because of what you're saying was confusion about the zoning bylaw, but it's been in effect for so long and I think people understand it.
I have a question for Mr. Rowland. You designed this, correct?
On a flat site.
On a flat site. So what is your interpretation of, for the last, let's say, 5 to 10 years, about height averaging and what?
I'm just going by what I've been told, in terms of this particular application. I was given the direction from the owner and the other people involved in it that we were told that this is what Marcus said, that when you start out the application, as long as the HTC application is submitted after the property is filled, then that's the existing grade. I understand everything everybody's saying here in terms of it doesn't make any sense, but it, in terms of pre-existing up to this point. But to answer your question, these were the parameters that were given to us.
Fair enough.
Could I say one thing?
Sure. Just identify yourself for the tape.
Sure.
Please.
My name is Ward Osgood. I own the property. And, obviously Don has spoken about the grade and such, but I understand the issue that you're bringing up. I do. But from my perspective, I was under the understanding that I could fill it, of course. And also, I also filled it to the grade. It was a big hole, and it really wasn't a buildable lot at that point. And I filled it to the grade that was appropriate for the surrounding people. So, although I think that it's probably true that some people would really perhaps take advantage of looseness in the law, but I certainly didn't intend to do that because it was a hole and I just filled it level. So for my particular situation, I don't think I was trying to take advantage of it. I wasn't building a mound or putting a house up.
Well, you were filling a hole.
I was filling a hole. That's right.
That's to your advantage, filling the hole, no doubt. I mean, you didn't want the house in the hole.
Well, the house, right. But
so you filled the hole. So it's no different than mounding, in my opinion. Just my opinion.
Well, I think it's different from the perspective of the neighbors and appropriateness for the area. I mean, I think it's different.
If you have a geological or formation that creates a valley, just because your neighbor is here and your neighbor is here, doesn't mean you should fill the valley in my opinion.
Okay.
Well, I don't necessarily agree with you, but that's just me.
I'll step down.
So anyway, how do we want to proceed here?
I mean, I think I again want to have accurate information of what was there and then what the new height calculation is. I want to interpret it the way that I think that the zoning bylaw should be interpreted. Unless we get the letter from Marcus next week that comes in or whenever for our next meeting that says, you know, no, they could fill it the day before they submit it to the HGC and then they don't have to do anything relative to the zoning bylaw calculations. But that just doesn't seem right to me. And until I have that, I'm not going to, I don't think that I can vote for this.
Any other members have an opinion on this?
I have to concur with Lisa on this. I'm more than willing to grant the variance or be part of it with the proper numbers, either on the application component or a letter from Marcus stating this is the way he's now going to interpret grade components, because I'll start using it myself.
Exactly.
Amen.
I'll start filling every site that we're going to build on.
Why not? 10 feet.
Well, yeah, 49 North Road, they went up like 9 feet.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's do
Rock
it.
and roll.
We'll get those views up there.
Bring the trucks.
Yeah.
It's ludicrous. Anyway.
So that's the issue. I mean, we're setting a dangerous precedent here by saying that this is the way that things are happening, and I'm not willing to do that unless I get it from up above. That's the way it's interpreted.
From Marcus or a revised calculation.
And well, either way, if Marcus, I guess if Marcus says that this is the way that I'm interpreting it, then maybe you don't need to recalculate it because the existing grade was where it was when you started your permitting process. But short of that, there definitely has to be a calculation.
I just am going to go on the record saying I don't care about the calculation. You can tell me that it's 29 feet. I want somebody to tell me that this is now the way the grade is interpreted. And
why is Marcus the
arbiter of this?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Because
I know he's a zoning enforcement officer, but why? I mean, if we have, 3 professionals at least on the board who have been doing this for a lot longer than I have, that are shocked that this is the way it's now seemingly being done, it seems bizarre to me that Marcus is just, if he decides to interpret something a different way, then that's the way the whole island and this whole industry is going to change to.
Yeah, I don't think that's. I agree with you. That would be terrible. It would have to go back to the town meeting to get a reinterpretation.
I can think of, we had the application before us. That was the one where I can't remember if it was on Dukes Road or no, it was
not North Road.
Was that the one where they wanted to build and they had the stone and the big porch and
no.
Like, why wouldn't they just? I think it was off Nantucket Road or something.
Behind Dukes Road.
The whole notion of height averaging is just a waste of time. You don't have height
why wouldn't
averaging
he
anymore.
have filled that in?
Yeah,
and we had another one that was
that changes the value of multiple pieces of property on the island that are big holes. If people knew that they could come in and just dump a bunch of land, in like along, I'm thinking of one in particular up on the cliff. If you could just fill that whole thing in,
hey,
it'd be worth a lot more money than it is today as a big hole. So
that
makes no sense to me.
I can think that there's many applications of things that come before us that would benefit if they could just fill it flat. Like,
It makes no sense, so.
Yeah, I don't.
I think we need either more information or something.
And maybe he did, I mean, I'm sure Marcus
Yeah.
said what he said, and maybe there's specific reasons for this application, but it's a bigger conversation.
Yeah, I mean, please be aware, we're not trying to pull the wool over anyone's eyes. Obviously, we did this. I mean, the fact that we're coming in before the house is sited, I mean, this is, you know, I think this is a sort of a rarity that we say, okay, we're going to move a house and we think we need a variance rather than coming in after the fact and saying, oops, we're 6 inches over. Can we get a variance for this? I mean, we're being very honest and forthright about this. And while I appreciate, you know, the frustrations involved with calculations and getting this information from Marcus, I mean, it's still, at the end of the day, the variance, I don't know if this is the site or the situation to make the poster boy for height issues. That's all that I'm getting. In the grand scope of things, this one's de minimis because of the view easement, village height overlay district, taking all that all into account.
You're moving a building, you have a site, you know, and that's what I'm saying. I'm not opposed to the application, but the information in the application isn't accurate. And until it is, I'm not going to vote for it. Even if Marcus told you can start on a flat ground, I don't agree with him, and I want to see the figures the way that I think they should be figured out for a decision that's going to be filed with a variance. You know, but I think, you know, I don't know how Ed's obviously spoken, Mark's spoken, I don't know how everybody else feels, and if other people share Ed's opinion, that I don't really know what your opinion is.
Ed's just mad. He had a really bad day.
No, I didn't have
but
a
I
bad
agree
day.
with
I'm
you
just,
on the
I'm
averaging.
just again, all you have to do is come in with the letter. You know, you've had months. We've asked for the info. You come in basically with the same info, and all you have to do, somebody bring me a letter saying this is what Marcus said. Not what he said, what Marcus has to give us a letter. Lisa said, and Mark said last time, at least bring us calculations to show us the real height from ground zero, not fill ground. And you didn't do that, so you know I'm sorry, but I'm not that sympathetic, frankly, to your plight. So.
Can you provide the board with a detailed topographic map prior to 1972?
We couldn't find one.
You can't find one.
The applicant has admitted to filling it. Oh, so you're saying if it weren't
with two foot intervals.
If it weren't a depression, if it were actually excavated.
Well, it was excavated or the tennis court was built sometime around 1972.
But I sort of feel like it should just be from, I don't even care where it was excavated to. I mean, it's from before he put the fill in. What was it before he dumped all the fill in to get a flat site? That's all I care about.
Okay, I don't disagree, but I mean, there's a lot of places on this island, Crosby Farm was one of them, that are now subdivisions where there are potholes that were excavated 50, 80, 100 years ago, never filled in, and, you know, they're a fifth the size of this room.
Yeah, but I just think that opens you up into so much interpretation about where the hole came from and who excavated it. I think it's your pre-existing grade and your proposed grade. It doesn't matter where that grade came from, in my opinion.
Okay.
Because it's too complicated then. I mean, talking about making the zoning bylaw more complicated.
I think because it was an existing structure, we could see our way to this variance very easily.
Right.
With the right information. I'm not trying to create a hardship here.
Yeah.
We just need to cover ourselves because we'll see more of this, and we have been seeing it, and it's just not justified.
Okay, I'll make a motion if we're ready to continue to June 9th.
I second the motion.
Is there anybody else who wants to talk about this, by the way? No. So
we'll get you some information.
That would be great. Thank you. And the notice doesn't have to be any different?
It might be safe to renotice it. Just, we'll be a little vaguer on the height.
Okay.
Because you had a specific height.
Than the maximum.
Yeah.
You're not going
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I do too, just in case.
It's going to be helpful for us.
be detailed.
Well, again, it's the whole, not this application, but the whole, whether the neighbors do it, whether anybody does it, it's not the intent of the bylaw. And the fact that people are now taking advantage of it is unfortunate. It's just one more example. Anyway, so the motion's been made. Who made this motion? You? And
Lisa, I seconded.
Lisa seconded it. Any further discussion?
Yep.
No. All those in
May I?
Yes.
One last thing. As I said, I believe as we noted at the last meeting that my client is trying to move the house and has a move date set up, and so I think
when is it? I don't understand why you didn't come in with other information then. I mean,
we asked for last time. We asked specifically for you to do the height calculation last time.
based
you were on
on
the phone,
zero.
I think,
Yeah.
but you must have heard that. We definitely asked for that.
I may have misinterpreted. I thought the elevations is what you were looking for more than
I think
anything
we asked
else.
for both. We asked for, specifically, Ed wanted to see some sort of plan that showed the previous topography,
Right.
but I know that Mark and I both said that we wanted to see a new height calculation.
Excuse me, John, when's your move date?
June 7th.
So you couldn't get a permit by then anyway.
Right.
Appeal period wouldn't be up.
Yeah, because you have to wait for the appeal period and
Yeah,
everything,
yeah.
and then get a permit.
20 days, yeah.
So it's not going to happen.
Can I just add, Don has already stated that there's about 6 feet of fill, and the height averaging on that would be 3 feet. Can we change the application and add 3 feet to it? Would that satisfy
Well, that's
the
what
board?
Lisa and Mark suggested.
But I think it has to be noticed.
Yes, I know that.
We suggested
Last
that
time.
data be given to us for this
Last
meeting.
And it
But I
didn't
think
happen.
we have to
so-
renotice.
And even if we did a vote, how would you get a building permit and be moving by June 7th
Well,
with a 20-day appeal period?
we're applying for a permit to move it at 25-foot height.
How are you doing that?
Well, we're showing a mud block, which is
I get it.
Okay, just to pull out that 6 inches.
just to get the process moving. It's taking much
But,
longer than anticipated.
funny, the interesting thing is, I mean, even with that mud block, you're still, in my opinion,
Yeah.
taller than 20.
It's still the same issue. You're right.
Yeah, it's still the same issue. So.
Right.
It may not be with Marcus, though.
Well, Marcus doesn't really know. I mean, again, in his defense, he gets showed a site plan.
Right.
If
It's flat.
they don't put anything
Why-
on the application that they're filling, if the HGC doesn't have it, how does he know there's fill?
Right.
He has no idea.
No. So why wouldn't he issue the permit if it was under 25 feet? Which
Right.
is max height of the VR district.
Yeah, so he'll go ahead and issue
So
it.
he would issue that.
You will.
Oh,
He
good.
will.
Then
So-
let Marcus do it, because I'm not voting
Yeah,
for it.
I'm
So
not
let's
voting
move
for
on.
No, but the reality is we can't do the mud block. I mean, this is not
Oh, I
this
understand
is not a
that, but that'll
solution.
get you to move. So
It allows us to move it,
Right.
but we still. I'm not sure if this schedule with another
Why
month.
can't you do the mud block?
It's an existing floor system. We can't cut into the existing joists. It's not a real practical solution. It's doable, and then it looks right.
you'd have to remove the floor system and put in a new one to do that.
I think the concern is that now the notice is inaccurate.
No, I'm sorry, okay. I think we're okay on the notice. I fortunately didn't go into too much detail. I said the structure upon being relocated will continue to be non-conforming with respect to height. But we'll conform to all our intensity regulations. So I don't think we do need to do this.
So can we
the
just-
only conflict there would be with the actual certificate of appropriateness that was issued by the HDC when all is said and done. And maybe they don't care.
Maybe next time Marcus should be here and someone from the HTC to say whether they care.
I'm not sure they don't care as much as the information is not given to them accurately. I'm not speaking specifically about you necessarily, but.
Right, they have no idea that.
Well, they can know. I mean, you are totally reliant on applicants'
To fill out the application.
veracity in terms of their application material. And this happens to be an issue for me, but I'm only one vote, so let's move on.
Well, I think that, I mean, I'm frustrated because we asked for the information, so I'm feeling sort of frustrated that it wasn't given to us.
Likewise,
It
but,
feels like it was sort of a waste of time.
so,
Motion was made and
yeah,
seconded.
the motion's been made and seconded. All those Any further discussion, again? So we'll continue it to the 9th, that's the motion.
That
All
was
those in
Michael's motion,
favor,
right?
say aye. Aye.
Aye.
So that was unanimous.
Thank you.
All right.
So, when you look without conflict on the next one, so what, we step away now?
Technically, I believe you're even supposed to leave the room.
That's fine.
I didn't think it would.
It's fine.
That's what I wanted.
I think it's the next one.
Yeah, I think if you're the applicant, you leave the room.
Was that?
There are three of you
Is
at
this the
conflict,
next?
so
Where is this?
You don't sit down?
No.
No, it's fine. I mean, whatever.
All right, so Michael, you have a conflict on Appleton Road as well? Okay, so these 5 don't? 1116, John N. Sullivan and Marie T. Sullivan, 5 Appleton Road, for the applicant.
Yes, sir.
Just identify yourself for the tape and all that good stuff.
Good afternoon, John Sullivan, 5 Appleton Road.
And tell us what you want to do.
I'm asking for special permit to reduce the 10-foot side yard setback to 5 foot at my house, 5 Appleton.
Is this a special permit?
Okay? That's it.
Is there
Got it.
Is there a site plan in here that I'm missing that shows what you're, oh, here it is, okay. I
Well,
found it.
that's 48.
That's the proposed garage that you want to go to the 5 feet for.
Yes,
Is that
ma'am.
right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, my question on this particular application is how, and again, maybe it's not important, as I'm framing the question, is how the house got closer to the lot line without relief, too close to the sideline.
Certificate of occupancy.
I know that.
My only guess on that is the time that I did this was about the time that they changed the. It used to be a 10. It used to be a 5 foot setback, and then they changed it to a 10 foot on my side of the road. It appears that everybody signed off. So I'm assuming that everybody had in their mind that it was good to go for a 5 foot.
And as you said, it probably what it was at the time. Mark, do you by any chance have any knowledge of, well, this was upzone. Yeah, okay, got it.
I remember we had another person come in, an applicant last year, was it? Similar.
Yes, you can do this by special permit. This is one of the districts where you go from 10 to 5 via special
Right.
permit.
On one of the 2 lot lines.
Okay.
All right, if indeed you were to get this relief, I would only caution you, don't go to 5 feet. Go to 5'6". So you're not back here when somebody makes a mistake and it's 4'8".
Correct.
And then you won't get that relief.
I understand. That's something I would do.
Just don't be that exact.
Yeah, and the front as well. Right, the front setback is now 20 feet.
Right.
So
Yes.
Just make sure to go a little bit off the front too. You're getting a little close to your building there. I guess that doesn't matter. That's not a zoning issue. With your roof overhang?
The roof overhang may be
Might
larger
disappear.
than
Oh, yeah.
I
Okay,
drawn a
then
little
yeah.
larger than it should
It's
be.
not a dwelling unit, correct? It's just a two-car
No, sir.
garage.
It's just a 20 by 20 garage. Just a bare garage. Nobody's living in it.
Has this been HCC approved?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, we grant this type of relief
fine.
quite often in upzoned areas. Is there anybody in the audience want to talk about this? All right. Again, just the caveat: please don't come back.
Understood.
I mean, I like to see you, but don't come back.
Understood.
All right. So does somebody want to make a motion, or
I'll make a
does
motion
anybody-
to.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'll
Go
make a
ahead.
motion to grant the relief as requested.
All right.
Second.
Jeffrey got there first. Any further discussion? No. All those in favor say aye.
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 May I ask,
Absolutely.
clarify, are you applying the usual boilerplate condition that no further encroachment inside the 10-foot setback, we'll throw that rule.
Absolutely.
Yes, thank you, Ellen.
And again, no closer than 5 feet or 20. Okay?
Okay.
Good.
Did we vote?
Yeah, we voted. It's unanimous.
No, we didn't.
I made the motion, I think.
Well, we made the motion. Do we have further discussion? No? Let's vote again. All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you.
Who seconded?
Thank you very much.
Jeffrey seconded.
Jeffrey seconded.
Okay.
Thank you. Have a good day.
I didn't have enough gas. I need more. Okay, so you're just getting warm?
Should we get,
Yeah, we should get the other one, yes, please.
You doing one kite hill?
yeah.
Okay, I'm going to step off if I can because I'm working on 5 and I don't want any appearance of conflict.
Are we doing one kite hill?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So why is
next.
Stephen Cohen at the microphone? Okay.
Because John was so disgusted he left.
John's gone. Do we want to
Yeah,
move
we
on
already
to
did that
Stephen? John will be back.
Hostetter?
We did Hofstadter.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, they did that right at the beginning. Please,
Oh,
Hey, Mark, will you ask Susan to come in?
what time is that? What time is
we
this
let them
stuff?
can.
We could do Stephen next one. John wants to do
Yeah, it was one of the first ones we did.
This meeting started at 11?
No.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about it.
Nobody would have noticed.
Right.
Oh, boy.
Oh, this is, that's good.
Where's Jim?
Oh, he's getting a morning
He's in the parking lot.
Oh, do you want
He's
to
in
do
the
yours
parking lot?
then?
He's right up front. So I'll make an unofficial comment, which is I found it mildly amusing that you guys think that the zoning code is supposed to make sense when it comes to height. That is an illogical suggestion basis for making a decision.
It made sense before.
There was an interpretation that everybody worked with.
I know. I'm just saying
No,
that
it makes sense.
you're.
I've never
you're-
questioned the height calculation, actually.
Yeah.
I think it makes sense.
Right.
It can be confusing to calculate, but that's why you have surveyors.
I know.
Okay, so we're back on to,
I've had it, I'm out of here.
and John,
You've had lunch, come on.
I have another bar.
All right, what are we on?
Freezing.
I need Lisa to help me.
13-16 at Jonick Real Estate
Oh, yeah.
13
John.
Company.
LLC, Maureen Dumpy, trustee. One Kite Lane, for the applicant.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. For the applicant, Attorney John Brescher, representing Jonick Real Estate 13 Company LLP, and Maureen Dunphy, trustee of the One Kite Hill Lane Realty Trust, owners of One Kite Hill Lane. As you may remember, this property was before you a few months ago for lifting the structure and placing a new foundation beneath it. And the salient point of this is that in the decision there was a condition, specifically condition number 6, paragraph 16D, that stated that there shall be no further construction involving exterior changes or expansion without further relief from this board. The applicant is requesting to expand the basement beneath the front porch to house a mechanical room and a washer and dryer. This will not, it's completely outside the setbacks. It will use the same construction methodology as the original permit, and is directly, there's no change in ground cover either.
No change in siding, no change in ground cover.
No change in siding, no change in ground
Well,
cover.
I thought, sorry.
We ground cover
Well, I
just
think it
is.
counts as ground cover, but.
No, I didn't think it did. I thought they
It
got
had
rid
to
of
be
that.
like 2 inches or substantially underground. This is underground.
Well, whatever.
I mean, we're parsing again the idiotic bylaw that says it's substantially underground or insubstantial. I don't know. It's just.
It's substantially underground.
I don't have a problem. He doesn't
Yeah.
have a ground cover issue anyway.
Right. Be that as it may,
Just don't say it's not ground cover.
we're okay.
We're not making.
We're not, strike that from the record. We're not going to discuss that. We have reached out to the abutters with respect to this construction, and they have given us their blessing.
Really?
Yeah, this is why we're here. They have no problems with the construction. I've reached out to Arthur Reed to make sure he knows and that he is on board as well, and he said yes, that he's spoken with his clients and they are all in favor of it as well. So we are requesting a modification to special permit the decision in special permit 3115 relative to the expansion of this, or in the alternative, special permit relief to expand the pre-existing non-conforming structure, and by expanding the basement beneath the porch, and the expansion will be outside all setbacks, and will not create any new living space. It's the washer and dryer and the mechanical room.
Any negative mail on this?
Nothing.
No.
It's a little bit of a death by 1,000 cuts, but you could fit this all in the part of the basement that's not the other bedroom.
I don't know.
We don't care about that.
No, I don't think so.
Let's, I'll make a motion.
Is anyone here to speak on this?
Anybody want to talk about this one? All righty. All the other conditions remain in place. No exterior construction, no car blah, everything. Okay? All right. Does somebody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the relief as requested.
Okay. Who wants to second?
All those other conditions remain in effect.
I'll second.
Hold on. You're technically not voting.
I'm not. Oh, I'm sorry. Why am I
You
here?
can vote. Oh,
Well, because
Oh, that's right.
technically the
Oh, that's
five.
right, that's right.
I'm
that's
not
right.
trying to
Okay,
diss
okay,
you.
No, that's fine.
I just,
That's why I think
Yeah, you're doing a good
the
job.
way we used to do it is the proper way to do it.
well, again,
Well, actually, I'll sit out on this one, and then
I
Well,
thought
the
that's
table.
what- I thought
because
that's
you
what
haven't
we were supposed
spoken.
I don't speak. Okay, Jeffrey, you're back. Thank you.
But technically, you could speak.
Yeah, that's right.
he could speak,
Could
just couldn't
speak,
vote.
right.
I will
I'm
second
not sitting, so.
Jeff's motion.
Okay, so Jeff made a motion, I'll second it.
All right, any further discussion?
No changes to anything in the conditions or anything, right?
Right.
Everything else
The
stays.
site plan, the plans will change.
Okay.
Correct.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
What I noticed is we.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Cohen. Nantucket Wheelhouse was actually before Angonic. Sorry,
No, it
Stephen.
wasn't. Not on mine.
Well, in the staff report it is.
Not on this.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
All right, I'm happy to defer to John.
Okay, so just to be clear, I'm not, I'm here,
I'm
but
gonna
I'm
have you
not
sit,
voting.
because I'm gonna go to the
But to be
rest.
clear, because you weren't part of this, you can speak.
I know, I
on the
understand,
application,
right, I
but
understand, but
not-
you were right.
Technically, the five regular
Members,
members,
absolutely.
and I hope that my term is up this year. Whose term is up?
Here.
And who's the alternate that's up? I saw in the paper that an alternate was advertised too.
Yeah, I'm told that mine's on the ballot for,
Oh, you were Mike Angelos's replacement.
Oh, yes, you just need to make
yeah.
All right, anyway.
Don't forget. Don't forget.
Can we apply?
Yeah.
Okay, anyway.
So who's sitting?
So Lisa's not sitting on this?
No.
So everybody except Karam or everybody except Jeff?
Everybody but me. Jim, you
Okay.
can sit on this one.
Well, you know, you still.
I know, I'm here, I can ask
I
questions,
get
I'm
to
just not going
determine
to
who
vote.
votes, not you. Okay? Let's be clear about it. You want my seat. You talk to me.
Check out the
My
Mr. Power
apologies.
Hungry over there.
15.
And should we take a break for lunch?
At once, it's not working.
It's not doing anything.
15,
I have two of those in
16.
my bag. Do you need another one?
Nantucket Wheelhouse LLC, 13 Massachusetts Avenue, for the applicant.
Okay, so This lot is on the water on Massachusetts Avenue. It's an oversized lot of a little over 30,000 square feet, where 20,000 square feet is required. The house is historic and well within, and the garage cottage unit, it's a combined garage cottage, and they're both within the setback. Before I actually tell you what we're applying for here, let me tell you a little bit of background on this lot, which is that my client just bought it last summer, and Michael?
Is this a property that I had something to do with?
Fouché is the owner?
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm not sitting on this.
Okay.
Sorry. So we have enough coverage here anyway.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yep.
I don't want, I'm not going to say anything.
No, you can say whatever you want. You're good.
All right. Anyway, let's start over.
Okay. So we have a little. Let me give you a little background on something that leads into later, which is that when my client purchased this property, the prior owner had gotten permission from the town to put in a new septic system, and had actually taken out one of those betterment loans to have it put in. And the problem that she ran into is that the installer designed it and installed it, but with no permits. And we discovered this at closing when we went to go close out the permits. And the real problem that we ran into was that the law changed in between, so that the system that was permitted was no longer, the system that was installed was no longer legal. So it had to be ripped out and replaced with a tight tank, which was quite a to-do, as you can imagine. So the that as a background will lead into one of the reasons why we need a variance. So the cottage garage unit, which is the building on the left, on the right on your plan, is going to get slightly larger, about 30 or 40 square feet larger, and we'll have a little, not necessarily taller, but we'll have some dormers added and a little porch added, and we'll be moved about as much out of the setback as we can without getting too close to the other buildings. So we're going to move it out of the side yard setback and a little bit out of the front yard, but not entirely out of the front yard setback. The building will be substantially replaced, but will be, similar to what's there. It will still continue to be a cottage, and the again, the ground cover will go up, but what the part within the setback will be, a little bit of the building and a little bit of the overhang. The main dwelling will have two additions put onto it, both of which are in the interior of the lot, not within the setback. The portion that's in with the setback is proposed to have just an outdoor shower, and that outdoor shower is added as close as half a foot to the setback. The reason why we need the outdoor shower is that the tight tanks have strict rules, and this is something maybe beyond my technical capacity, but the conclusion that we've come to is that there are strict rules about how much flowage of water you can have going into those tight tanks. And in order to renovate this house, what we're being told by the Board of Health is that actually they can't have as many showers in the dumping water into the tank as they'd like to. So in order to add a ensuite bath to this bedroom, they have to have an outdoor shower, which will just dump into the ground, as like any outdoor shower would. So technically, we could do it without a variance. We could do it by right if we changed it a little bit, and what I mean by that is that it only counts as a structure for zoning purposes if it has a floor. So if you just have under the common reading by the zoning officer, if you have you can have a shower head on the wall and it doesn't count for anything, and you can have a little fence going around it and that doesn't count for anything. It's considered a fence. It's allowed to be in the setback. But what makes it count against the setback is when you put in a floor. And we'd like to do it the right way. We could do it without the floor, but we also thought that the right thing to do in here was to be fair and not try to sort of sneak it in. So the reason why we need the variance is to put that shower on is being driven by the fact that the Board of Health regulations changed and forced a tight tank onto this lot, and we're trying to control the amount of water flowing into that tight tank, which is a very unusual situation I think it's the only one out there, although potentially there could be more later. So
Only
that
tight tank in Nantucket?
what
Only tight tank in Nantucket?
in that area. There's obviously others, but this one was required for in a very unusual circumstance. So that's what's being applied for. We're looking for zoning relief to move and expand the garage cottage unit, and for zoning relief to add this outdoor shower.
Well, they weren't really unusual circumstances. They had to comply, and that's why they had to get the tight tank. I mean, I don't care, but I wouldn't say that that's just a timing issue.
Well, it's owing to soil and site conditions that are only for within this little swath. I
thought it was whatever. Jeffrey, you're more familiar with Nantucket. What is the situation out there? I mean, can you put it in a septic system generally, most places?
Most places, sure.
Even with the new regs?
Sure. Most places.
So what triggers the tight tank here, Steve?
Because of how close it is to the ocean.
Yeah. So anything on that side of the, next to the water?
Anything over the bridge and probably on that Mass Avenue stretch, sure.
Yeah. I believe if you're on the other side of the road, you're far enough away.
On the other side of the road, then when you get further towards the Atlantic Ocean, you probably need tight tanks over there as well.
Can I ask you, how many, in the existing structure, how many bedrooms and bathrooms?
I don't know.
Do you know how many bathrooms?
I don't.
Showers,
I don't know. I could find that out.
I'm just having a hard time, like, for variance, because like you need a shower in the ensuite bathroom, unless it was like, I don't know, 2-bedroom house and they need
I hear you.
two showers or.
So we could either.
And there's another outdoor shower here.
Right.
There's a reason for having two outdoor.
Yeah, the same. They're becoming the showers off these bedrooms.
Because the outdoor shower before was off the garage, yeah. And then
Yeah.
the other structure?
Correct.
It was right.
So the other structures
As
have an indoor shower and you're getting rid of the outdoor shower, right?
correct on the
The little one.
little one. Yeah.
I just assume not bless the thing in the setback to 5 inches or whatever. I mean, I know that Steve is doing the right thing.
I know, I
because
agree.
You can leave the floor off and get a CO like that, but
You'd rather just bless it or not bless it?
not bless it.
Yeah.
How many outdoor showers are there on Nantucket that are, that might be within a setback?
I agree
Well,
on it.
Right,
But-
they don't have to be, so why would we
Right,
make
so
it?
why are we all of a sudden
I think it's
starting to grant variance relief for an outdoor shower enclosure that,
Doesn't really need it.
Yeah, I'm with it.
But like, obviously don't put the floor in or don't make it a structure that.
I mean that we could do it.
fence.
We could do it the other way, or we could,
Yeah,
try to figure out. There's obviously restrictions with this property from the Conservation Commission because it's within half the house right now is already within the 50, and then HDC issues. So we're trying to be cognizant of where we might get permission to put an outdoor shower, and putting it on the front and back are tough. Putting it on the side is where they like to see it. But I'm not telling you that.
It could go back on the garage, you just don't get the porch.
Well, it doesn't serve the same structure.
Right, so the
Good point.
bedroom that it serves is right there.
Correct.
So we couldn't put it on
How
the
do they-
back corner right here?
How do they get out of that bedroom into the outdoor shower?
Yeah, it's outdoors. So
I mean,
Yeah.
you have to have a step that's in the setback, all of a sudden,
Right.
it's not shown here? How do you get from there to there?
Is there a door from the
From the there would be a door there.
would be
Well,
a door
arguably then there's a step. If
from
it-
the bedroom right onto that outdoor shower platform?
Yeah,
Right into the shower.
into
right,
the shower?
right into the shower.
Well, again, that's not going to be kosher because then you'll need a step which will be in the shower. So
I don't.
I'm just
Yeah.
saying from a building code standpoint.
Right. So
I'm not comfortable.
okay, I mean, part of the application is to get your sense of comfort, and if you're not comfortable with that as it's laid out, we can, if the board is comfortable with the other relief, I will go back to my client and relay that and see if we can retool it, and if we can't, then, we'll take what we can get.
All right, I'm sorry, summarize the other relief.
So the other additions to the house, the main house, are interior in the lot and don't need relief.
Right.
The cottage garage unit is going to go from about 540 square feet to 570 something. So it'll get slightly bigger, and it'll have a couple of dormers and a porch added to it. So it becomes more like a little cottage. But it will be moved outside of the side yard setback, which it's currently in, and it'll be moved further out of the front yard setback, but not entirely.
It's getting arguably better, although it was a garage and now it's going to be a dwelling unit?
It was a mixed use, and now it's just going to be a cottage. I don't think, when we had originally applied for it, we thought it might be a change of use, but it's currently both, so it wouldn't need a change of use.
Anybody have any comment on that?
There's some mail.
Getting slightly better?
Was the mail in the,
I didn't see any mail.
Yeah, there was a letter just about the shower.
but not in the packet?
No, it came to me after I posted the packet, so I included it in the staff report.
Oh, okay.
On page 8 of the staff
Part of the
report.
staff report.
Oh, I see. Oh, yeah.
Page
Yeah, Italian.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, I remember that now. Okay.
Okay, so if the board so pleases, I would request a continuance to the next meeting, just so I can confirm with my clients that they're
Perfect.
satisfied with the level of relief that the board seems inclined to grant.
Okay. We good with that, everyone? Yeah. Okay, someone make that motion?
I'll make a motion to recommend to
Second.
Karen seconds. Anybody in the audience? No. All those in favor say aye.
Okay. And I do have actually one question. You're all planning on being at the June meeting? Okay, great. Thank you.
Let's not remind us. All right. So, who's coming back? No one? You guys coming back? Yeah. Mark? You're still thawing out.
Can't feel my
It's
hands.
not that cold.
It's pretty cold.
Yeah.
Not that warm.
Hands aren't doing so sweet.
Something new, isn't it?
Okay.
I was feeling my toes. Yeah. Hand warmers.
1616, Todd W. Winship and Elizabeth W. Winship and Bess W. Clark, trustee, 16 Monahasset Road, for the applicant.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. For the applicant, Attorney John Brescher. What you have before you is variance relief to validate it's the pool cabana, which has been, my clients have decided to are hoping to convert into ultimately a tertiary dwelling. As a result of which they are going to be over the ground cover relief, maximum ground cover allowed in the Lug 2 zoning district by approximately 180 square feet. The reason why they are requesting variance relief for this is that Ms. Winship is handicapped, and they are converting this pool cabana for her primary caregiver. So that it will be a place for this primary caregiver to live, so she can be taken care of. In that sense, that is the hardship that is before you. It is on that basis that is the reason why there's this ground cover overage. It was originally a pool cabana. You can see from the pool, and it is going to be ideally converted into a tertiary dwelling and meet all the requisite building codes. It was approved by the that's right, by the planning board as a tertiary dwelling, obviously contingent upon ZBA approval. I have the applicants are here. If you have any additional questions, that might give some comfort relative to the hardship that they are seeking.
Okay, I just want to be, I'm just confused. So the existing one-story building at 506 square feet
Yes.
is getting bigger?
No, I apologize. It was originally not counted towards ground cover because it was an open cabana. So it wasn't technically enclosed.
So when your application speaks of here, the enclosure of the breezeway with windows and doors, is that the cabana or is there a...
Yes.
Okay, see, I was confused. I kept looking through the papers, looking to see a breezeway, which to me connects two buildings, and I was like, I had no idea what the breezeway was. So
was that the
there was no breezeway.
The cabana was not enclosed.
Correct.
Okay.
And now it is being enclosed as a result of the enclosure,
And that's the
180
highlighted
square feet
building.
overage. Yeah. That's
So
correct.
the roof doesn't change,
Does the whole thing
it
have
just
to
gets
be?
closed in.
That's right. That's right. That's exactly it, Michael.
But it has, I'm sorry, I don't, is there a plan in here? Is the house
Oh, it's
a
finished.
bathroom in it and stuff
Well,
already?
it says 500 square feet.
Is there a bathroom in it?
One floor, it's not
Just toilet.
open air. Is this
Is
work
there a
done?
shower?
Is this completed?
Outdoor shower? So is this just as a summertime residence?
Yeah, is it done? Is the work done?
Yes.
Okay, so this
So
is...
why, I'm just curious,
Why
what
is it-
triggers you coming here if the work is done?
Because they're over the ground coverage.
Well, I know that, but why you didn't do it with a permit?
We're looking for the CO on our house that's already completed.
So you have
I'm
no
sorry,
building
but
permit
let
there?
me just take a time out. We should ask you to come to the microphone and speak, so, just so you identify yourself. I know who you are.
There's so many permits in here, it's a little confusing.
Yeah, so why don't you make it a little less confusing for us? Or let me see if I understand. The cabana was there.
Yep,
At some point, you decided to make it a third dwelling anyway,
correct.
right or wrong, with no permit. You then
Correct.
got a permit to make it a third dwelling, or no?
It was just
That's why they're here.
Yeah.
sprayed.
Okay.
That's right. They were doing additional work to the main dwelling, and to get a CO, they needed to file, I believe, an as-built, and at which time Teddy King noted, hey, what wasn't originally ground cover now counts for ground cover, and in order for you to get a CO, you need to get a variance.
So the application made it sound like this work was going to be, and it was going to happen. There's no discussion
So
about it being done.
Is there already a caregiver living there?
Yes.
So, but it's a tertiary dwelling, but it just has a toilet?
Yes.
So,
An outdoor shower.
so okay.
Does it have
But
a
it's a
kitchen?
year-round, but this person is
They use the house main shower.
So my confusion with this, additional confusion, was that the application says that the person requires 24-hour care, but you've got the caregiver living in a pool house. It just seems to me like you would put the caregiver in the main house, and now that I find out that this work has...
I mean, out of privacy for my parents, that isn't appropriate. And the caregiver is an adult and needs her own space. So this is why she has her own. It wasn't intended for that, but as my mom's condition worsened, it was necessary to have that, housing, and so that's.
I get that, but now you could, so on two levels, so now you have an unpermitted third dwelling, and you have this person living in it where there's no kitchen, there's no shower.
There is a kitchen.
In that thing, in the cabana?
It's a range top and a sink.
But you just said that they use the kitchen in the house.
It's not a legal kitchen by the definition of the Board of Health. It doesn't have an oven.
No,
Yeah.
it does not have enough.
So it's not a legal kitchen. It will need an
And
oven
it's not a
to
legal
become
dwelling.
Right,
It's not a legal dwelling.
You just, now it's this kind of amorphous.
So let me back up. So the roof structure had been built and was a certain square footage, 500 and something square feet. And that was only done that way because they didn't have the coverage to make any enclosed space. How much of this building makes it over the ground cover? Is it the whole thing, or if you like took off 10
No.
feet of it, would it meet the ground coverage, or?
I mean,
You're looking for 180.
yeah, it appears that it's 180 square feet. That's
Over
what
the ground
over the maximum allowable ground
And
coverage.
the building is
of
how big?
4%.
Roughly?
506
No,
approximately.
well, you don't know the dimensions, so there are no drawings, so it's hard to.
No.
So there's none of these building permits have to do with this at all that I'm looking at. These
No,
are
they
all
just have to do-
immaterial.
They have to do with the construction of the.
The other buildings.
No, I think there was one, wasn't there, for like for the cabana, or at least there was this certificate of
Single
appropriateness?
family, maybe it's way in the back here.
Yeah, I forget, I wrote it down here.
What work were you doing to the main
COA,
house
we have the
that you
COA,
needed a
25
CO on?
Patient Street.
Okay.
Was it new
It was a
work?
renovation.
Were you adding ground cover to it?
No.
So did you have a permit for that work?
Yes.
And when did you do the work for the cabana at the same
The
time?
cabana has been built for 9 years.
And then closing it?
2 or 3 years ago.
And why did you get a permit?
It was an oversight.
In your contract with the person who did the work, didn't think they needed a permit to have a?
Apparently not. It's a very private property, and this need for my mom, who now is in a wheelchair, just kind of
I don't mean
snowballed.
to sound callous, and I feel for you guys, I just.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Relative to the size of the property, I know this is
Right,
like
but
pushing
we
the
don't like
limits. It's just.
tertiary, how, you don't allow,
Did you not get it tertiary?
I know now, but I'm saying like,
I mean, trust me, if we could go back and do it all over, we would have. We really, really would have. This is a family compound. This is my mom. This is my sister. This is me. We've been here for a long time.
I am totally sympathetic but disinclined. I mean, you'd never have given extra ground cover in my once, and I wasn't on it. So I don't see it
I
personally.
think, and I also just, I get that, I also am very sympathetic, but it sets, we have really worked hard to prevent this sort of creepage, I feel like, in the past, and so I'm worried more about other, I understand why you're arguing the hardship would be the lead to get us to the variance, but I don't know that I get that.
It's resolvable potentially too. I mean, you could just take off, you don't have to remove the roof, but take off 12 square feet of enclosed space and it would meet the coverage.
12?
12 in length, so it's 16 by 32, so if it went to 20 by 16, you would probably be
Right.
below your ground coverage. So if these were added after the fact, maybe they're easy to take out and move in a little bit.
And or get rid of the 44 square foot, or the shed probably doesn't count against ground cover.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, the sheds.
Why does this as-built say it's 4%? I mean, he's not counting the five.
He's
not counting that building.
What's the date of the as-built, Ed?
March 26, 2016.
Page
Yeah, it says.
175.
I have it as C plan.
So that made 2%.
Yeah, it's. I did the calculation. I think it's actually 1.5%.
It says C plan, is that what you're, the existing says C plan.
I'm just doing math. I'm not texting.
Yeah, I had it as 1.5. That the current ground cover ratio is 4.15%.
That's the allowed.
4.15%.
4% is what they're allowed. That doesn't mean that that's what is
I got it.
Right,
Yeah,
okay.
of course. Well, normally it says what's.
No, it
I know.
4.15 now.
I'm
Some
supposed to
surveyors-
what you're allowed. Math.
I know.
What are we looking for?
108.
But you know what? It looks like the shed is hatched. So if you took that off, then you even have to take less square footage off. It's hatched, so he's counting that as coverage
4889.
with the shed or without.
That's without 4889. 117. 724
It's 40. 4889. That's without the shed. And allowable is 470.
You don't have a 44 square foot shed.
Okay, yeah, it's not included.
You're not-
Anyway. Go over.
I think, well,
Ask to
I'm
continue.
disinclined only because, you can't enclose things over time and come back and say, we enclosed it. It's just too dangerous a slope to go down.
Mr. Chairman, can we request a continuance to the June meeting so we can explore all of our options here?
Absolutely.
I think that might be the best course of
Okay.
action.
Who'd like to make that motion?
I'll make it.
Lisa made it. Who wants to second it? Graham seconds it. Any further discussion? No. All those in favor say aye. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Nantucket Memorial. We don't have to vote on that, right?
You have to vote to approve the withdrawal.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, 17, let me call it, 1760 Nantucket Memorial Airport. They want to withdraw as a matter of right and without prejudice. Who wants to make that motion?
I'll make it.
Lisa. Who wants to second it? Michael. Any further discussion? No. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, we're moving. Now, other business, 66-00. Abram Quarry 40B. I gotta get to the right.
Is this a voting thing or just a discussion thing?
I don't know yet. But we're gonna hear from Ann, who is gonna explain all of it to us.
Yep. Ann Cuspa, Housing Nantucket. I know you guys have been here for 3.5 hours.
It's okay.
I have 5 minutes because I have a 2:30 that I have to go to. So I'm going to make it quick for everybody's benefit. In a nutshell, what happened was in 2007, there were some recorded documents that weren't completely executed, one of them being the monitoring agreement. And Housing Nantucket did perform some services for the developer at the time, but we don't have an agreement with him. We should have an agreement with you because the developer is out of the picture. So I think it makes sense, and I think Town Council makes sense, said it made sense for us to have an agreement, ZBA and Housing Nantucket. We'd like to be the monitoring agent for the project. A couple things happened since 2007, one of them being the mortgage crisis. So the deed rider that is recorded on all these properties, 40B properties, is different now. And one of the things that's changed is the way that the monitoring agent collects its fee, and then also all of the fees that are associated with this resale of a unit. That's all changed. So how those fees are collected. Now, the reason why this is so urgent is the first resale of a 40B unit will be happening sometime in the very near future. We have a verbal notification that someone wants to sell in the Abram Quarry development. So I really want to make sure that we have all of our ducks in a row because it has this really strict timeline that we're all, municipality, monitoring agent, everybody's supposed to follow. And so we need to know who are we dealing with and who's going to be paying for what. If there's a lottery, who's going to pay that cost? Where's that money come from? So I think the essence of why I'm here, and I think Eleanor has brought in Town Council. I think we still need to talk about it, and Town Council and we need to get on the same page as far as how we're going to move forward with this resale. So that, from what, like the big thing in my mind is this lottery fee. So just running through numbers, the person who bought this house bought it for $242 or something. When I recalculate the resale fee right now, it's around $300,000, and that's because the interest rate's gone down a bit since 2007, and the median income's gone up a bit. So that makes the resale price go up, and we saw that in the covenant program too. But anyway, so rather than having the affordable unit owner make a windfall of profit, because now there's a $70,000 difference, we should be able to get the people paid who need to be paid. The lottery agent, who's different than Housing Nantucket. If the municipality has some fees, like legal fees or whatever, we need to understand, and I don't, where that money is going to come from and what's the legal way. So the affordable unit owner gets paid what she is entitled to, and all of the other fees are paid, because I know we can't be footing that bill. Just for example, in the monitoring agreement that the town council referred to, 0.75% is the monitoring fee. Well, I spoke with Hack today, who is a lottery agent, and they say that their standard fee is 3% of the max sales price. So something like that, like where's that going to come from? So, and I thought that it would come from the monitoring agent fee, but when I saw, well, now the monitoring agent fee is 2.5%, and this, if the lottery costs 3%, the monitoring agent needs to get paid, because we're doing a lot of work outside of even the resale of the units. Like anytime somebody wants to refinance, we have a lot of work to do. When the people have complaints, which they have had, we have to monitor that. You know, there's a lot of work involved in being the monitoring agent, so we need to be paid for that too. So that's what I got. And
so so what are you proposing? 2.5%?
I think I'm just proposing let's talk about it some more with town council. I mean, the way that the now deed rider states, the one that's universally accepted, it says up to 2.5%. So I feel like that's
sale price.
Of the sale price.
When something changes hands.
Yes.
How do you get paid on a regular basis?
We don't get paid. That's the thing. We get paid when there's a resale. Only.
Monitor it
Tough living.
free of charge.
Yeah.
So to speak.
Well, it's the same thing with the covenant program. We only get paid when there's a transaction. So we have to just do our work, and then when there's a transaction, you get paid. Like even the refinancing. The first time somebody refinances, now there's a lot of them, because the mortgage rates in 07 are a lot higher than what someone could refinance now. So we're going through all the paperwork for that, but we don't get paid for that. So that's why it's so important to be able to charge up to 2.5%. That's the only way that we make revenue from monitoring this project.
And this would be the first resale of an affordable unit, not some of the market rate units that probably changed hands.
I think they have. I don't have anything to do with that.
You only get the 2.5% on the affordable.
Yep. We monitor the affordability, all the deed restrictions. That's our purview.
Just of the affordable units.
Yep.
So are we voting on something today?
I don't think.
I guess
we're taking a sense of our, again, my reading of it was that Nantucket Housing was supposed to be the monitoring agent, but for whatever reason, it didn't work.
Well, Chapel was the primary, and Nantucket Housing at the time was...
Housing Authority. The Housing Authority is the secondary.
Yeah, and so
they
now to establish that they're the primary and the secondary...
It's still the Housing Authority.
Yeah.
They worded it wrong in all of the recorded documents. It was very sloppy.
In addition to which it wasn't properly executed.
It's sloppy all over the place.
It's Nantucket.
But we shouldn't have to suffer for that. You know, it's so...
Yes, you should.
All I want is for it to be a smooth transition, so when the other ones happen, that it gets done properly.
So what are you seeking from us?
I think what I'm seeking is for you to say it's okay to charge the up to 2.5%, and then we can work with town council to figure out the rest.
Figure out the document.
Have you officially been designated as the intermediary for this?
We're on the deeds. So the deeds say that we're the monitoring agent, but we don't have an agreement with anybody. So that's why that makes me uncomfortable. I want to know who we're working for, and since the developer is out of the picture, it should be you.
You may not have had a chance to see the packet was so big, but the packet part 4 had I requested legal opinion from town council as to who the actual monitoring agent is, because I saw that the documents weren't properly executed. He did a very detailed and thorough investigation, specifically looking at deeds, and he came up with the fact that Nantucket Housing Authority, DBA Housing Nantucket, is the appropriate and actual monitoring agent. But he said we really need to get a new agreement on the record, on the books. And his only concern, he made some more stylistic edits, but his only concern was to do with the original 1%.
3/4 of 1%.
So do we
Yeah.
So none of the issue
do we need
is
to
we
change
need a
the
document.
permit?
And are we happy
Or
with the
do we-
2.5%?
It is, I think that is sort of built into
Which
the
seems
permit,
de
so that may
minimis.
be,
Given
But they only did it on.
on the resale.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with changing, like.
That's
upping-
right.
That comes
With
off
upping the number, I just want to make sure that we,
Sellers.
like, we have to amend the existing permit, and then you drafted an agreement in the town council.
It's
meeting.
just, yeah, the agreement that I put forth to you was the one that we have with Satcham's Path. I didn't really change anything except for the specifics, but that's, and in that case, we have an agreement with the developer, Housing Assistance Corp., and the Housing Authority. So it's this, kind of the same parties, but the developer is not in the picture because they don't own any of the units anymore. And that's been recorded. So that's, I just took that kind of template document and said, okay, let's just get this in place.
I mean, I think fundamentally, I'm certainly okay with it. The 2.5% sounds totally reasonable, and that is sort of a state limit.
Right, up to. And it doesn't mean we're going to charge that amount, but we could. You know, sometimes, like, if I do the calculation on Satcham's Path, some of the 150% units, some of those units are $500,000 or something. So we're not going to charge 2.5% of $500,000. It's just too, it's like, it's like 10 grand or something. It's out of their league. So there's a check and balance there.
Well, it should be actual cost, the higher, the lesser of that, your actual costs incurred, or the 2.5%, right? So
It could be.
Windfall.
Right.
Just because it's 2.5%.
Well, but that's difficult given the fact that they don't get paid anything for all the other monitoring.
Right, but do you keep track of it?
No, we don't. I don't keep track of our hours, but I think it's just kind of a sanity check to say. I really compared it to what we get paid for a covenant transaction, which is about $3,000. So if we're going to be charging, how does it fit into that?
Yeah, but I think Ed's point, because you don't get paid for any of the other work you have to do
Right.
to maintain these places, it seems like you should be able to get a little bit of a windfall every now and then to cover the other expenses of just being the monitoring agent for the whole
Well,
process.
this is the first transaction since 2006, 7?
Yeah.
So,
And even any of the Abram Quarry units, actually we don't, I'm sorry, not Abram Quarry, the Beach Plum units, we're not the monitoring agent over there. So I know for Abram Quarry, certainly, it's the first one. There's 7 units there.
Let's say for ease of math, it's $300,000. So you're talking $7,000 for 9 years
of making sure that the place is running smoothly.
Not that you were the monitoring agent the whole time, but if you were.
Well, we were, I mean, we were in name, and people ask us questions, and we weren't really doing work. I mean, I certainly was telling people you got to go here or there.
I'm okay with
And so as a
I'm okay with it. I think that we should specify a fee, and that's what the fee should be. I think it's a little messy if
I agree.
well, I'm only going to bill you this much for this
Yeah,
one.
that's
I think that gets a little funny.
And then if you make a little extra money, that's great, because you're going to probably lose money for months
Yep.
until the next sale goes through.
Yeah, I
Good.
would not have the movable fee.
Although, I mean, I appreciate your point. If somebody's selling something for $500,000 and they have to pay 10 grand out of that,
That is a lot of money.
that's a lot of money for something that's in an
But that's
affordable
not,
unit.
yeah, well, but we're talking specifically about Abrams Quarry, not every
Right.
Beach Plum or
Oh,
Satcham's Path. I mean,
right.
So these are 80% AMI units.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still a lot of money to
It is.
somebody.
Yeah, I mean,
don't get me wrong, but
it's on the,
Well, can
Yeah,
we
it's
make
still a
it
lot.
some sort of a scale? I mean, some of these units are going to get sold to people with incomes of up to 150.
Nope, this is just, right now, the income level we're talking about is 80 grand for a 4-person household.
you have to, it has to change hands to the same basic
Yes.
level. Okay.
Of income.
Percentage.
I think you
wise.
set a flat fee because I think you're going to run into problems if, and then, I don't know, yeah, I think you would run into
But that's the language. The up to 2.5% is the standard language. I think we should just keep it.
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
keep it a chance problem to be fair.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Thank you.
yeah.
Good. Thanks. That was 5 more minutes than I said I'd be, but
Okay.
that was good.
Right,
Thank you so much.
We'll get some paperwork that we will review and move on.
Okay.
On that. Do we have to vote on that, Eleanor, or that was just
No, but if
discussion?
you have something specific you want to direct me to do in terms of the follow-up, I would appreciate a directive that is clear. I mean, my the next move will probably be to go back to town council and again go through again with the fine-tooth comb because I do think I saw that specific number built into the comp permit.
Right, so there's two things, right? I would ask town council, right, do we need to?
It's a quick modification. I don't think it will require a public hearing, but I need to check
All
on
right,
that.
well,
So
that's
maybe Ed
different.
Rochant, in fact, is the person I would actually, so I need approval from you to
Okay.
Ask Ed.
ask Ed, and I need to get clear with my supervisor for how that would be paid for, because the developer's no longer in the picture, so it would probably come through the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. They paid for the legal service opinion. So I just need to clear a few things with my supervisors, and I can come back to you next month and say what progress was made.
Perfect.
But we'll need to sign the, hopefully next month we can sign a monitoring agreement, because really we want to, there are issues
Pending
and
sale.
complaints and problems that are on,
Yeah.
on the premises.
I think if you,
I didn't see any issue with the town council's opinion. The only question, right, that we just answered that was that we're okay with the up to the 2.5, and that was his only real.
Yeah.
That was his only real.
He did mention something about 130, procurement issues, so I need to look into that as well.
Okay.
well, is it
MGL
okay with the
31.
board if this all happens and Eleanor sends an email, it's ready, we can sign it? I'm not sure we need to discuss it again.
If it turns out to require any kind of a public hearing or the
Right.
comp needs to be altered, then we'll go that route, but,
No, you'll just send us something.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
so no vote required, just directives.
Okay, so can I get a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Who's seconding it?
I second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.